Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. A bunch of mega fans giving you the news discussion and, of course, a whole lot of opinions about Brandon's works and the Cosmere. I'm Eric, and joining me is Ian.
Hey, I'm a writer.
Also joining us is Evgeni.
Hi, I like oats and oaths, and I am Argent.
Okay. And also joining us is David.
Are we talking like toasted oats or like what kind of oats?
I prefer toasted oaths, actually.
Yeah. I put my oaths in the toaster oven.
Okay, that's good. I was gonna say that'd be braised, but that's actually like frozen. I am Windrunner on the Discord and technically the forums. And
Nice.
I'm here to talk about Kaladin
Hell yeah.
today.
And last but definitely not least is Grace.
Hey, I'm thegatorgirl, and I prefer ideals to oaths, I guess. I was trying to think of something that would make sense with ideal, and that would be like oats and oaths, and I just couldn't.
You could have said
But what about
promises.
promise? Yeah, I was gonna say, what's your take on promises and how they're subtly, inexplicably different?
Hey. We'll do an Adolin episode eventually. Wind and Truth spoilers, by the way,
We
guys. We're doing Wind and Truth episodes for like forever. For like a long time. Forever. Eternity.
The year is 2076, and we are talking Wind and Truth.
Yes. So today, friends.
Wait, who are you?
Oh, I'm Chaos. Sure. Great.
Oh,
Cool. So today, everyone, we are talking about the Oathpact, but it's not just the same Oathpact that you knew and loved. There's a new Oathpact with even vaguer mechanics that we are going to talk about today.
A fresh coat of paint.
A fresh coat of paint. Because Kaladin became a Herald in this book. Wow.
He did.
What do you guys think of Kaladin becoming a Herald here? We're talking about the Heralds and the new Oathpact, obviously.
mm-hmm.
I mean, he has not gained a new squad since Oathbringer, and I think it was time. And this is the ultimate, like, squad of squads that he's now a part of, so...
That's an
Ultimate
iconic take.
squad.
I
That's
didn't even
good.
think about that. I didn't even
I
think
thought
about
that
that.
as we were preparing for this. I was like, wait, was all of those squads, like, meant as preparation / foreshadowing for him leading the Heralds?
Yeah, and he kind of got a squad in Rhythm of War. Everyone started painting their forehead with the glyph. Like, that was just
Yeah, but that's
spontaneously
not the
manifesting.
same. That's
It's
just
true.
people
It's true. But he
idolizing
always.
him.
He's been saving his squad currency all throughout the Rhythm of War.
Yes.
And so now he could buy the premium squad pack.
Man.
If you're new to the show, we've been joking about Kaladin getting a new squad. That like predictions in Oathbringer for Rhythm of War. It's like, oh, Kaladin will get a new squad, and then he'll get a new squad every book. So anyway, that's the context to the
Which
jokes.
I think is the background behind the Space Whales idea.
Yes, it is that Kaladin will get space whales and will come back in the back half. And you know what? Technically, I guess they're on Braze, but I guess they're like not alive. Like they're cognitive shadows. Like their bodies died, right?
Yeah, they
So-
died.
So
Kaladin
like,
died.
I guess they have to be Shadesmar space whales.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
That sounds,
Which
Are
mantras.
basically just mantra.
Or Star Spren, you know.
yeah, that's true.
They're more like space dragonflies.
Well, that sounds
Right.
like Roshar. Like we're saying the same thing. You're just translating it to Roshar, good sir.
That's true.
The books are in
It's true.
translation, Evgeni.
Yeah.
I spent most of the book. Brandon kind of kept me guessing, like about what's going on with Kaladin. You know, he dangled like the King of Earthera thing out there.
How's
He
wild.
dangled, like I felt like Honor. I never really thought Kaladin would become Honor, but when and it seemed like Dalinar was struggling with some of what that meant. It made me wonder. Okay, does that mean that it goes to someone else? And so that always felt like a live possibility.
Sure.
Even if I never really felt like things were moving in that direction. But like once it happened, it really felt inevitable, you know, like Kaladin is almost like becoming his own kind of like archetype in real life. So it seemed a little bit like, you know, he's leveling up, like he's becoming the sort of mythic hero he was already becoming just naturally.
I think I said this on our reaction episode, but it was the idea that Kaladin's arc was never going to be about him like becoming less of himself and riding off into the sunset and just kind of retiring or whatever. It was always going to be him graduating to something more. And the question was whether that something more was going to be King of Eurythero or whether it was going to be a herald. I agree that honor was always, it never felt like the right fit for him, although him being presented with the core of the shard and going, honor is dead, but I'll see what I can do, and ascending to honor would have been funnier than
that would be really funny. Yes.
Then using that line to ascend to heraldhood. How do I feel about it? I feel pretty good about it. I think, except for the quote-unquote Herald of Second Chances, which I don't accept as a real title. I think that's kind of just a thing that he says in the moment. Except for that, I think it's a good conclusion, midpoint of his arc. Very, very main character energy.
Yeah.
What do you reject about Herald of Second Chances? Because I feel like it's as legitimate as like any of the titles, which is just like some nonsense they say about the Herald. So like if Calvin's like, this is what I want my mythology to be, like I'm going to be the Herald of Second Chances.
I think it's just the phrase feels too pedestrian to me.
Or like too cute. Like
You could be like Herald of Redemption or something.
That I would accept, right?
Yeah.
Because the others are Herald of Luck, Herald of Kings, Herald of the Common Man, which is probably the closest to second chances that I can think of.
Yeah, he's gonna get so many though, so it'll be he can iterate, because like there's Herald of Mysteries and there's Herald of Priests and there, he's gonna have 7.
Yeah.
I mean, no one knows about
Kaladin
Kaladin saying that anyway, so
yeah.
Currently,
So as long as he doesn't bring it back when he brings himself back, then we have until book 6, maybe book 7, for him to like workshop a better PR campaign.
Can you imagine like Adolin and Shallan like razzing him over Herald of Second Chances? They're like, "That's what you want."
Chills
like
that. I want it. I want it so badly. But no, I like it. I think it's a fitting point for his journey. Yeah, and it feels well. I'm happy that this is what he is doing. I have to respect a man who just like does the put the cloak on and the sweep and the turret.
Yes.
Like that's an image.
Yes.
Yeah, as for my thoughts, I'm also fairly positive on this. Like David said, it's so obvious in retrospect. Because I was also like, is he gonna be honor for periods? Because like I got very strong Kaladin vibes from reading the Tanavas flashbacks.
Oh, that's really interesting, actually.
Can you elaborate?
I don't remember specifically what twigged in my brain to compare to Kaladin in this point in time, but like I definitely had Kaladin vibes. And like there's a whole Child of Tanavas thing that's never been explained.
Still hasn't.
Yeah.
Unless you accept child-in-law.
Yeah. But it's like grandson-in-law. It's like Honor was not Syl's dad. The Stormfather was, and the Stormfather is not Honor.
I mean, Avatar's
definitively Stormfather is not Honor.
Avatars kind of are Honor, or their shard. Paggy's a shard.
It's different enough.
Paggy's a shard.
Avatar-in-law.
Avatar-in-law. That's a compromised position. Okay.
And like, as many of us have been saying, Kaladin is the main character of Stormlight.
Yes.
He needed a strong conclusion for this book, and this just makes sense. We knew Yezrian was going to be replaced at some point. Like you can't just kill off a herald and then like the heralds don't matter anymore.
Especially with heralds mattering more in back half, right?
Mm-hmm.
Brandon said that.
Yeah, it's like the heralds are too important for Stormlight archive as a concept that like, okay, like we needed to replace one. There had been theories about like the entire cast becoming heralds, but of any of them, it makes the most sense that it's Kaladin.
Yeah.
And not Seth. Thank God for poor Seth.
That would be very, very bad.
Yeah, that would have been a bad one.
Although
I did.
Chana certainly had an idea for who she wanted her replacement to be.
Yeah, well, hey, that's another question. Maybe they just start swapping it around.
I would say on the whole, I liked it. I'll be honest, I didn't really see it coming that much. Like, I had some idea of, like, the wind wants something from him. I did not necessarily make the connection that was like, he is going to be the herald, and that's what the wind wants of him. I think there was actually a moment when I was like, Kaladin and Syl are going to become the Stormfather. That's kind of where I thought that might go. I don't know why. But I was like, protect the Spren, the Stormfather's the big Spren. That's like, he's going to ascend to the Stormfather instead of Honor. But I do like this sort of Kaladin becoming a herald thing.
Would have been fun to do a callback to the skies are mine line, and he becomes the skies.
That'll be a back half thing that he says. The black storm goes away. The skies are mine, actually.
Kaladin throws enough like one-liners that can like he can really fit into any role.
Yeah.
He's good at that.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I think when I think about this, honestly, my first thought is like, I don't expect this is like actually what's gonna happen, but in my mind, like Kaladin and the other herald in that dreamscape is like my favorite Cosmere sitcom that has yet to be written. Because I just like, I think there's a lot of very funny scenarios that could come of that. I think, you know, in reality it's just gonna be Kaladin like giving them therapy and helping them get mentally better, but that's how I've like mentally been thinking about that.
Just imagining like Seinfeld music, you know, just yeah.
Like,
Friends.
Okay,
Yeah.
Do you think they're like, okay, two questions. A, do they sleep? Because B, God, I hope so. Like, can you imagine just always being awake, like always hanging out with the same 10 people?
I think they can, but they don't need to.
Yeah, same with
Okay,
food,
hopefully.
right?
Yeah. And do you think that they're like, are they building homes? Like, are they like building a little settlement? Or are they just kind of like wandering around like a meadow? Like for like months.
I mean, they're essentially
It's the months-long beach episode, David.
Yeah,
That's
you know,
Let me.
it's just like
open up
a
my
long
list
series of poignant
commissions
conversations.
real quick.
You know,
I really like Kaladin being a herald. I think this is a really good way to get him off screen for at least book 6, probably. Like, I don't think he's going to come back in book 6, right?
Unless it's the end, like a town-esque.
Yeah,
like,
I really like that idea of like, he's returned right in the epilogue there. Like, that sounds very appropriate.
And I would love for him to return at Kolinar for some reason, because I think that'd be a sick callback.
That'd be really cool.
new Kolinar. That'd be so cool.
And then just get immediately killed by Sarah.
Yeah, it's like that would be such a stupid decision on Kaladin's part.
If they're broaching peace with the singers, like maybe that's not like he's like, I'm here as a herald of humanity, you know, like maybe he is coming in peace, at least to try for a second, you know.
there are humans living in Retribution's territory, so as long as you don't like do the tell thing and to ramble about how you're a herald, like you're probably
I think he's gonna come back as a herald with his, his honor sphere or whatever, you know?
Yeah, but he's not gonna have a mantra to like.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, hopefully.
He's not going to show up and be like, I am Kaladin Stormblessed, herald of second chances. The true desolation is here, and I am here.
The time of the return is in hand.
Yeah. It's like,
Maybe
we know the desolation's here, guys.
He could like tell like one person that though, you know, like he doesn't need to announce it at the gate, but he can start spreading the word. One thing though that I do want to say is that it's inevitable Kaladin will fight. You know, the heralds are going to fight. They're going to use their powers, you know.
Yeah.
I would like Kaladin to still remain more in a non-fighty like teacher like leader role, just based on his like decision making in the end of Rhythm of War. Because to me, it's just there's a little part of me that is a little disappointed that he kind of immediately was like,
Sure.
I'm gonna walk away from the fight and find what I want to do, and then he's like, turns out what I wanted to do was fight. Like. So that's just my thought.
Yeah, that's. I think that's fair, but I really want him to be super badass. But yeah, like that is going to be an interesting thing, like how his fighting is going to go.
I'm fine with it being like a tool in his tool belt, but like I still want Kaladin to be like that, to be what Kaladin is. He's back to be the fighting, like fighting at the forefront of humankind. Like I want him to be doing other things too.
Like especially since there are other heralds that are more about fighting. It's like that's Tom's thing. That's Chana's thing.
Yeah. Like when I think of the heralds like fighting in a desolation, I'm sure Ishar was a fighter.
Yeah.
But he was that's probably not the main thing. Like he probably had other tools that he was reaching for by default. And then when those didn't work, then he went and like punched people and like stuck them to the ground and stuff.
And
it's like
Jezrien being like of leadership, right? Like I can really see Kaladin take that role, right?
Yeah, it's like for Ishar, like he can fight. Fighting is not the most effective thing he can be doing at any given time.
Yeah, no, and it objectively isn't, right? Yeah,
I think, and I don't want to sidetrack the conversation, but I think there's also something poetic about Kaladin assuming the role of the Herald of Kings when he is dark-eyed, which back in the day did not mean much. I think Jezrien himself was dark-eyed, as were many of the heralds. But contextualizing this, like with Kaladin's journey in mind, is there's something is righted in that ascension.
Yeah, I did really like that. And I think that's very cool. I'm a big fan of Kaladin being a herald. I think that it just feels really correct for him. And I gotta shout out the postlude of just how beautiful the postlude was with Kalak. And guys, I'm just a sucker for we'll get better and then we'll do one last job.
Last job. Kaladin's 11.
The last one. And
is it Kaladin's 11? It's 9 heralds.
12,
it's still and it's I was gonna say Ox, and it's 1-2-1. Yeah, it's Kaladin's 11.
But Syl is there too, right? I mean,
Syl's also
are you Kaladin counted in the 11?
No.
Okay. I don't know how the naming
is Ocean? Does Ocean?
Ocean is definitely part of the 11.
Okay, well, 1-2-1 is not going to join the job.
Well, that's going to be
1-2-1 can leave, honestly. Like
1-2-1 is just going to be pouting in the meadow and just be like, I'm not going to build our cabin in the meadow or whatever.
Oh, also, gotta say, hate those high Spren names. Could not remember that Spren's name. Was trying to search it. Was just like searching random numbers. Could not find it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I'm still...
Nail is bonded to Abba.
Abba, yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny, actually.
Yeah, like high Spren names just being numbers. I don't totally understand. Like, I get cryptics are like formulas or something, but like they were definitely described as just being numbers in previous books, so the distinction is lost on me.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
The other really cool thing about, like, I think it's actually like the epilogue is because if you've read the book, you see that the chapter arches that have the heralds in them slowly degrade over the course of the book.
Just awesome.
And the last one is a wedge that is Kaladin.
Hell yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's
because it's almost like a New Hope type, like a rising thing, which I think it's great. I mentioned this in the reactions episode, but I love like when Brandon and other authors play with the medium of the book in some way. And so like having 4 books that establish that, we have chapter arches that show the heralds, and they are all the same, and that's how you do chapters. And then in a 5th book, not only do you go from the 5 parts to a 10-part thing because it's appropriate for the story because it's the final 10 days, but also the arches crumble because the old age is crumbling, and it's like that's. I think it's great.
It's good. That's such a cool idea.
And it's like such an interesting like evolution of, because like Brandon obviously got the idea for like the chapter headers like from Wheel of Time because he's a huge Wheel of Time fan, and like there's a lot of like meaning in those like for like different viewpoints and like stuff that happens in it. So it's like an interesting evolution with a next level up of complexity with like which heralds are on each given chapter, that like if you go look through, like there is a method to the madness. They're not just random. Yeah. So it's like
I think Isaac is the one who ends up, or at least was the one who was picking them in the past.
Yeah, I assume they're not going to be arches, but be something different. But yeah, I'm excited to see. But yeah, I think Kaladin as a herald is good choice. I do think it is fairly funny though, the way you described that, David. Of I'm not gonna fight. Actually, I'm okay with fighting. Let's do it.
I am reminded of Kaladin in, was it part 1 of Oathbringer, when he goes back to Hearthstone, where he is mostly non-violent. Like he tries to win to use a quote from the book, the hearts and minds of those around him, and fighting is kind of his last resort, and he's still good at it, but he prefers basic leadership. He prefers inspiration. I'm reminded of the moment when he in I think Hearthstone, or maybe it was one of the villages before, he chooses to reveal himself as a Radiant and just kind of rises above the ground and goes, the Knights Radiant have returned, etc., etc.
Yeah, like we won't fail you again. Like that. Yeah. That was a great moment. That was a really great moment in Oathbringer.
So I think there is something in that can get echoed in the future. Because the defining attributes of Windrunners are not just protection, which is what we see a lot of the time, but also leadership.
Yep. Kaladin's been the leader of his squads many, many times, so now his squad is all of Roshar in a sense.
Yeah. But man, the next return is gonna be so badass and so dope.
Yeah, it's gonna be weird. We definitely are gonna talk about what the return of the Heralds will mean, because it's a little more vague to me now, because we've kind of blown up the status quo completely. So, like, what does that mean? But also in our Vision and Braze, we have Syl. Syl's there. Syl accepted Kaladin's the Herald oath, right? That's what she did.
Was it the Herald one, or was it his
ideal?
Yes. No, it was the
Herald one.
The Herald one.
Yeah.
Yep. She said she was the one who said, "I accept these words."
Which Kaladin is, "I accept this journey." Syl accepts.
Here it is. Yeah, with the Heirs with the Crack of Thunder, when the reply came, it was Syl's voice. These words are accepted.
Hell yeah. I mean, Honor's dead, so, and the Stormfather died at that point, so, checks out.
Yeah, I guess you can make a case for, like, senior, and Cultivation is presumably packing her bags at this stage.
Just in the process of ejecting from the planet. Yeah.
Yeah. Syl is the eldest daughter of the Stormfather.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can make a case for her being in charge of I mean, but like, I don't think the Stormfather was ever in charge of judging whether an oath would be accepted or not. He was the delivery vessel.
Isn't that exactly what the words are accepted or not are? Isn't that literally exactly what it is?
No, there's some ambiguity, because like Relaine, like at some points implies that he's not able to become a Windrunner because the Stormfather holds a grudge against him. But at other points, in Words of Radiance, Syl says to the Stormfather, when Kaladin's trying to swear his ideal to get his Shardblade, you cannot reject his oath if he swears. Like if he swears it truly, you must accept it.
Mhm.
And so I kind of feel like the Stormfather might be putting pressure on the Spren more than anything. You know, like they know that he's got a displeasure with them potentially.
Mhm.
On
and I think also when Lopen swears his at the end of at the end of Oathbringer, the Stormfather is surprised, I think, and he goes, "These words are accepted."
Yeah, it's like I don't think for both the Stormfather and Cultivation and now Syl, it's like they're not deciding in the moment of like, am I going to accept these words or not? Like, no, it's like either like it's like the Cosmere itself decides whether or not the words are accepted according to the rules of Surge Binding and the Not Hail Bond. It's like Stormfather, Cultivation and now Syl are like the witnesses. Like they're the notary public, like signing off. It's like, yeah, acknowledge. Like, here's your notification. Like these words are accepted. But it's like they can't not accept words that are valid.
Here's your
they're a clerk.
They need to do that to know that if you break this bond, it is very bad. So it's like, yeah, no, it's legit now, guys. Like, it's there.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Well, and the other thing that's interesting with Syl in the end is that she does look a little bit different after the Stormfather dies. Where she, like, we got this line from Wind and Truth, chapter 144.
Hell yeah.
After the Stormfather is dead, she glanced at him, and as she did, he saw a storm in her eyes. Not a metaphoric one, but an actual lightning and swirling clouds filling them. In a moment, she wore something very different, a regal gown fit for a queen.
That's amazing. So I think this might be the line where some people are thinking like Storm Mother and type things, which
I am fully on board with Storm Mother. I have been on board with Storm Mother. You cannot convince me Storm Mother is not going to happen at some point.
Like that sounds amazing to me. But I also
I think
want
the name might be different, but yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think she's going to be Storm Mother.
Mother of Storm.
I like Storm Queen for Syl
Storm Queen.
personally.
Yeah.
Storm Queen.
I also like the idea that like Kaladin's name is Stormblessed, and now it's like Syl is the storm and she's the bonded to him and he's blessed with her power, so it's like he truly is Stormblessed now.
Full circle.
Well, I mean, that's actually an interesting aspect as well, because now presumably Kaladin has, Herald magic and not just Radiant magic. So like he's presumably super souped up as to whatever that means.
We'll get into it.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty complicated, I would say.
Does he? I think I don't know if that's
he got a new blade thing, right? And that was a spear, right? It was a spear.
It was a spear.
This was a spear.
Yeah. Honor spear.
Honor spear.
But I don't.
Could it be anything else?
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
I don't know if that like comes bundled with powers.
You mean, I don't know, man. I think in the original Oathpact, they got swords, and that's how they got the surges. So I don't know what to tell you, man.
No, I was going to say that. I feel like it's most likely grants the two surges of Windrunner, just because like that's the way that the Oathpact was structured. And if that's not the case anymore, then like, why not?
Sure, but like he already has those, right?
Yeah, but now they're going to be better.
But like, it's going to be compounded.
Yeah.
Nail has both.
Yeah.
Nail's double dipping, so Kaladin's double dipping now, most likely.
Yeah.
Potentially.
He's the super Windrunner, and because he never
sprinter.
broke or whatever, I'm sure that whatever magical abilities are going to be very powerful.
Like the other kind of Syl thing that I was sort of thinking about is I don't feel like she's necessarily more powerful than she was like before the Stormfather died, but it's like more like if you've read Dresden, like a mantle of authority kind of that she might have inherited.
Yeah.
And so it's like she could grow in power one day, and like maybe she could become something like the Stormfather, like that possibility exists. But like, but it's more now like that's kind of her responsibility. And I'm kind of curious, like maybe there will be no new Radiance formed immediately, but like maybe one day, even though there's still restrictions on the Radiance, there will be. And will Syl be like approving those oaths? Like any oaths that are sworn, will they hear Syl's voice?
That would
and
actually
kind of
be
like,
awesome. Like Retribution's not, but Syl's like, yeah, that's yep. Like Retribution
Thumbs
doesn't.
up, my guy.
Yeah.
It is notable that the Stormfather was able to control the storm, the Height Storm, in some capacity.
In some capacity, yeah.
He was able to summon one early at the end of Words of Radiance.
Well,
even if it did not agree with him, it seemed like that was not something that he enjoyed having done.
What do you mean by that?
Well, because the storms like kind of messed the whole pattern up. Like the storms came out of sequence, like remember, like the weeping stopped and then it like started again. And
well, yeah, sure, it messed
like
up
picked up in like a random. It just seemed like it was kind of like it kind of threw the whole system into chaos, you know?
Yes, it messed up the weather patterns, but like he was able to like I guess accelerate the next one is what happened there.
Yeah, it's more just like it's not consequence free. You know what I mean? Like like it seems like Odium can like he can back the Everstorm up, I assume. You know, like he can just like move that thing around. And and there's like there were more rules for the High Storm back when that was the thing.
Shards can do more.
Because bringing in a High Storm now is going to mess up the ecosystem so much more than what the Everstorm is already doing.
Well, you know, you don't need to move around the Everstorm. It's most everywhere, so that's not a problem anymore.
I was wondering. This is a little off topic though. Do you think that Azir is in the eye of the Everstorm, or do you think there's just like a random patch that is just like?
I think there's a random patch.
I think it's a random patch.
I think so annoying.
It makes nonsense rules because it's shard powered.
Yeah, I would just love for it to be the eye of the storm though. It'd be so cool.
Yeah, but I think it's like an eye, like a rock in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
That's
I think there is a perfect line in the clouds, the shape of Azir over Azir.
But like that's gonna cast a shadow though. So like is it a range such that does it move throughout the day such that there is always light as it
I fully think it could. That could be exactly how it works.
That could be the case.
That would not surprise
conversation.
Me. Like I would find that less surprising than just like a circular hole over Azir, because that would like that's too nice to the people around Azir. Retribution might like do that.
Just like a little sliver of light.
Yes, Retribution makes it so only the sun is on Azir at all times. Yes,
that's fair. Okay, nice. My other Syl thing that I had is so I think that everyone. At least this is my expectation, is like, we're in this Empire Strikes Back moment. The Everstorm exists. This will not be where we leave for Shar, ultimately. It's too depressing.
Probably not.
And so when eventually we have this rebound, like, is that Syl kind of ascending to I feel like a new storm is going to happen. And is that Syl being the storm mother, the storm queen? Is that the wind? Is that the two of them together?
My thought on this is that the first time a new high storm comes, it is going to be Syl like leading the charge. I don't think she's just going to set up in the storm going forward. I do think that's going to go back to being the wind's job long term. But the first storm is going to be brought by Syl. And I also have this image of like a bunch of Windspren like going out ahead of the storm and like warning people, because Syl wouldn't want to like murder everybody because they don't expect a high storm to be coming. But it's like the high Windspren get the word out.
Almost like rather than getting the word out, when you described that, I was almost imagining like Syl leading like an army of Windspren that are the high storm, and like that is their sort of like cavalry charge, and it just happens to bring the storm.
Oh, that'd be sick. And it's just like rolling back the Everstorm.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, David. Yeah. But I can believe in the end. Book 10. We're done.
Yes. Yeah, this is end game. This is end game speculation.
I felt it was very interesting how the wind was like the old high storms were different. And I feel like we will revert to kind of that OG pre-honor high storm type thing where it's not so deadly, because I don't think Syl would want that. But hard to say with whatever the state of honor itself, the shard is within retribution and stuff, like impossible to say how that's going to work. But I think that would be a pretty beautiful thing where like the end we have a new high storm kind of restoring things to even its very natural state. I think that could be really beautiful, potentially.
I think I would like that for an ending.
Yeah.
I think we are gonna need to sit in an Everstorm dominated world for a little while, though.
Oh yeah, that's got to be like
it's
epilogue book 10. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like I feel like climax of book 10 fits very well for like to parallel book 5 in the same way I like Kaladin and the Heralds showing up at the end of book 6 to parallel.
Yeah.
Paul.
Yeah. We're gonna get a lot of callbacks, I think, in the back half that are gonna like mirror that. Yeah, for sure.
You got to be careful with that. If anybody's ever read like David Eddings' like Belgariad of the Mallory Inn, like the second series is the first series again, just like almost like to the point where they make like a meta comment on it where they're like, "Oh, the world's trapped in a state of cycles, and we just
I think that's intentional.
cycle."
Yeah, but like the thing, Brandon did blow up the status quo. I think the books are going to feel very different.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think having the new characters will help too.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason I really like Kaladin. We had to get Kaladin away. We had to get Dalinar away, right? Shallan and Adolin, we less had to get out of the way necessarily. They're not as mythological power main character energy, right? Whereas Kaladin and Dalinar.
You mean Shallan, daughter of Heralds, is not mythological in status?
No, I agree with what you're saying. I more just mean like in world, we don't necessarily have legends of Shallan appearing currently. Whereas like Dalinar is such a legendary figure in the front half. So much so that a Spren has been spawned from him of the Blackthorn, right? And Kaladin is kind of becoming that same thing. So that's what I mean. But yes, that is very funny.
I kind of feel like Shallan will be the off-world connection for the characters in the next series. Like when those plots come for Rashar, they'll come through Shallan in that direction.
A good idea. Oh man, guys, we got so many episodes to do. Like any one of these random lines is like we could just have a whole episode on it. Do we want to talk about the title of the episode of Oathpacts? Because it's been 40 minutes and we are on bullet point 1. Nice. But like we wanted to do this episode because this book has so many different endings, and so I wanted to talk about like this ending, right? And so we kind of had to talk. This is a good palate cleanser, like talking about this Kaladin stuff. And we'll talk about Kaladin as a character and like do a full thing, but we're kind of just talking about the ending and the Herald stuff. So I want to talk about the mechanics of the new Oathpact because that is wild. But I think in order to do that, then we need to talk about the mechanics of the old Oathpact, which is of course Shardcast Classic, where every book we do a Oathpact episode. And I think, in fact, we're going to get to do that for many books to come, even, where we learn, this is how the Oathpact actually works, in, like book 7. So see you in Brandon, 20 years, and we'll do this episode again.
Yeah, Brandon pulled a fast one on us with a new Oathpact, Brandon. Way to go.
Yeah. I mean, we saw the Oathpact happen. That was kind of cool. I think one of the things that was most interesting to me is how the Oathpact and the Immortality, different things. Those are not, like Videl had to do the Immortality, right? Like that was surprising to me that Videl had the keys to Immortality.
Yeah, it always goes to show that like you cannot, when it comes to people who are invested, draw a straight line between like you're invested, so you have X, Y, and Z. Because like the Heralds are very invested. And they were not immortal until like something else was done to them.
That's wild to me.
I do find it somewhat amusing that like the key to immortality is we're just gonna yank your soul out of your body and make some changes to it. So to make you a cognitive shadow.
I think this is interesting in the context of like in hindsight, I think we should have seen something like this. And the reason I say that is because the Heralds are not that different from the Returned in that they are a cognitive shadow that is stapled to a body. In the case of the Returned, it is, their own body. And in the Heralds, they get a body made of investiture.
So this is probably more the second part. This is the manifesting their body type thing. Maybe?
No. What I mean is returned, and I assume Kelsier, by the way. If killed, die. The weird thing about the Heralds and the weird thing about the Fused is that when the physical body dies, their cognitive shadow does not, linger for a minute, go into the beyond.
Yeah, that is actually an interesting point.
It goes back to Braze and its Well of Souls, and is able to come back at a later date.
Yeah, that is
do they go to the Well of Souls specifically? Do we know that?
We don't know that, no.
Okay, I was just curious.
It is interesting that, I have a couple thoughts. One, I think you probably need the extra investiture to survive whatever Beetle does to make you immortal.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't necessarily have a ton of proof for that, but they did it after the oaths were sworn and they got the extra investiture, and my gut is they were not doing this before, because if you try to do this on someone who's not highly invested, it would just kill them.
That seems reasonable, yeah.
You were talking about them, the returned dying and they were just going to the beyond. Is it the nature of Braze and the core of metal that attracts souls that prevents that from happening?
I just want to shout out Alex, who did have a long-standing theory that something is wrong with the Roshard afterlife.
Yes, that's true.
And you know what? That sounds like what Grace just described. So I don't know what's going on there.
The quote I wanted to provide was from kind of I guess it's not a flashback, it's the vision of the original Oathpact.
Yep.
In which Ishar says that the bond will start, and then once it's complete, only once it's complete can Vettel seal immortality upon us, using our connection to honor to tap into constantly rejuvenating investiture from the spiritual realm, locking our souls at our current age. This way we can be reborn again and again.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that makes sense then, because you're like, okay, we've got what they're doing is they're like, okay, we had made a Herald, we've got this incredibly strong connection to honor, and then Vettel's going in and going and now I'm manipulating that such that we will be sustained by it.
Yeah.
Sustained
and made immortal.
and then respawn.
Distinguishing from the return, who require regular infusion.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Investiture, otherwise, their divine breath gets consumed and they get yeeted into the afterlife. So this is they're having a direct path to honor to avoid that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
I think that it's interesting too that it's Vettel specifically that is the one that does this, which in my mind kind of makes me feel like maybe there's a little bit of a regrowth tinge to it,
She's
when
the
they're
edge
respawning
dancer,
their bodies, she's the
I
edge
think
dancer.
that's exactly what's happening. Yeah, for sure.
So I feel like maybe there's an aspect of that to it.
Mm-hmm.
And there is another interesting quote from, I believe this is the Vision. This is Wind and Truth 108.
Good job finding these quotes, guys. Wow, look at this prep for this episode.
No, there's
wow.
there are a ton. I put a ton in there while we were talking in the early part too.
Nice. Very good.
But I think it's my birthday actually, because it's Nin, so I think Seth is seeing this. But anyway, Nail is saying, if you kill me, I will be reborn as our immortality was sealed through ancient arts related to, but not dependent upon the Oathpact. Unfortunately, I'm very likely to kill you instead. But
yeah, that's interesting.
So
yeah.
It's
not the right. So it's not the Oathpact itself, which is, I don't know. Before this book, guys, I thought all of this was just all the same thing, right? It was designed to have these returns, but I guess it kind of makes sense that Honor didn't think through the flaws in this Oathpact plan that we now know are the flaws in the Oathpact plan, where they can break and then they would respawn and stuff. They thought,
Honor thought it was going to be a one and done sort of thing.
Right. So
we kind of learn in the spiritual world visions, they had, I think, something similar on Ashen, and they were talking about Ishar was already experimenting for ways to get similar effects when the Oathpact idea was first brought up, right? Weren't they?
Well, they were already surge binders. Odium granted them surge binding on on Ashen. So like they had practice with all the powers.
Yeah.
And they also had what Brandon calls functional immortality, which is the kind of you cannot die from old age.
Yeah. And their aging was really that which was crazy as well in this book to just see that happen. It's like, oh wow, they're already immortal pre-Oathpact. Like, okay, sure, okay.
Well, they were ageless, not immortal.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Well, and they weren't even ageless because they did age. It was just slow. Although, like at that point, their connection was dwindling. So
they had dramatically increased lifespan.
Sure.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Which I certainly was not expecting, though. At least,
but it definitely validated all our time we spent going, "What's going on with the Herald agents?" Though, so at least they weren't completely insane, like talking about nonsense. Sometimes that does happen.
It explained a lot of things, and we're going to do a whole episode on all these visions eventually. Probably not too long.
I know. I think the other big thing that we learned about the Heralds in this book that was new was that their pre-existing connection to Odium was what made them the people that were important to do the Oathpact.
Yeah,
like
true.
that was the other, and like their generalized connection to the shards as well. Like that was helpful. Talon had a connection to cultivation
and Nail, because Nail was an OG honor stand.
Yeah,
Nail was OG honor, and Hoyd as well was someone that they were like, you've got connection to the shard as well, Midius. So
wild.
Well, yeah,
I think Hoyd is extra special in this regard.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily like Hoyd was like empowered by either. Hoyd is just bonkers weird anyway. So it's like, hey, we're gathering all of like the people who have weird stuff going on. Midius, you're close enough. You can join us.
Yeah, you're connected to gods. Yeah. True check mark.
Absolutely not.
He is connected to Adonalsium, and by extension, on like
all of them.
So,
but it's like it is interesting. Not all of them were connected to Odium. Like obviously, Nail had the connection to honor.
Yep.
Talon tried to kill cultivation for some reason and by some mechanism, and that gave him enough of a connection to things.
Sure.
I find it interesting that Shalash was also connected with things because she was a child.
And like, but having that really extended lifespan, right, is like really interesting what happened there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All of that is wild. Do we want to transition talking about like our new Oathpact, like what it does, maybe kind of?
I mean, we haven't talked about how the original Oathpact works.
Well, that sounds like you should talk about that, Evgeni, as our resident Oathpact explainer. And I think you tried to write an Oathpact article at some point.
I did. It is still on my user page.
Nice. Well, now you're going to have a lot more work to do.
Yeah, good thing you didn't do it because it's
as incomplete as it was 4 years ago.
It's a separate Oathpact. It's a separate page. We have a first Oathpact page and a second Oathpact page.
Oathpact 2.0.
We'll talk about
just
that.
Like Everstorm 1 and Everstorm 2.
The Forever Storm.
Sorry, the Battle of Everstorm 2nd.
Oh, don't even.
Truly cursed.
Sorry.
Truly the
some
darkest
Cyberverse stuff. Anyway.
No, but I do want to talk about the mechanics of the original Oathpact a little bit.
Let's do it.
Mm-hmm. Which is because like one of the things that I find interesting is, and not surprising, but interesting and notable, is that the way it works is that the oath that the heralds swear, which for the most part is something along the lines of to hold back the darkness, although there is a little bit of variation there. Mm-hmm. So like they swear an oath to honor, and it is that oath that acts as a key, or as a lock rather, to hold back the fused. And because it is their oath that is the lock, when they break their oath, when they break under torture and they go, okay, well, I cannot hold back this darkness anymore, or whatever, that's what lets the fused out.
I think the other piece of it, too, that was new is that Braze has this mysterious metal at its core, that draws souls to it naturally. And so like that portion is not really a part of the Oathpact. That's more just a natural phenomenon of like that happens on Rashar. Or in the Rasharn system, it would seem, as opposed to.
Yeah.
So they essentially put a cage around a place where souls like to collect.
Yeah.
They took advantage of like the natural mechanics of the planetary system to do the effect they wanted to do.
The way I've always sort of visualized it, because I feel like this is complicated and needs a visual, is like the Oathpact forged each of their souls into a single link in this circular chain. And that like link of chains is what is surrounding the planet, preventing anyone from getting out. And like the fused are sort of like pounding on it, trying to break one of those links to like let them all out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they say Cage of Souls in Rhythm of War is another way,
right.
you know, like, so yeah, I think exactly like that.
Space, I think is what it's
called.
That's very similar to how I visualize it. I think of it as less of a like links in a chain and more like a sphere around the planet, and like their souls are, or like I guess a cage around the planet is more appropriate. Right?
Cage is a great word. It almost makes me think like pre-Oathpact, if you killed one of the fused, they would go to Braze and then Odium would just respawn them. Right.
Yes.
And so this is just like, putting that barrier in place so that that respawning cannot occur. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
in a sense.
And there was a thing in this book that I think we suspected before, but it was confirmed here, is that, the way the Desolations worked is like a herald would die, and that would like slow down, like that herald would be on Braze, essentially holding back the return a little bit. They would not be able to prevent the return, but they were able to slow it down. And obviously, the more heralds that go there, the more they slow it down. And then eventually, like, if they don't all go there, then there's no, like, the desolation is not over. Like, it just, the fuse to just come back slowly.
Sure.
But if they do all return to Braze, then they can initiate the isolation. They can lock down the planet along with all the fused that have been killed so far. Any still on Rashar would continue to fight, but the moment they die, they go back to Braze and they are back in the cage.
Been caught, yeah.
Yep.
One other interesting thing is that like there is somewhat of a time delay of like a herald breaks, the heralds return to Roshar, and there is like they have a little bit of time to like start prepping people before the fuse start showing up. Which I find interesting because I can't see a mechanism for why that's the case as it's been explained.
That to me gets just into like, this is like a hand wavy like binding of souls, you know, and so like you're like, okay, when it dissolves, like the heralds are expelled first, and then the effects take a little, you know, a little while to fully dissipate.
Yeah,
you know,
the
like
fused have to like grind through the rest of the cage to really like break it open or something.
Or they have to,
or like
it is
all their way out of the well of souls, if that's what
sure.
You are just living in this well of souls right now.
It's a weird phrase that's never explained.
Yeah,
of course we're dwelling on it.
Do we?
Yeah, he's living.
Do we think that the weird metal core of Braze is the same as the Well of Souls, or are the two just related?
I think the Well of Souls is just a poetic turn of phrase. It is not like the Well of Control. It's not a thing.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I have no opinion on whether it's like a specific place or not. I'm not necessarily tying those two things together. I kind of had assumed that the metal was Rasium. People have disputed that, and I'm like, that's fair. But I kind of, you know, there's a metal that draws investiture to a certain degree
does
that
sound
we have
like
seen.
Rasium.
It's related to Odium, and it's on a planet called Braze, which is named for Raze, But like, who named something after somebody else by like putting an extra letter on it? I mean, like, I don't know.
Tanner does.
Like he is just mishmashing words nonstop.
Nicole Ashen.
Yeah. Evgeni, I'm going to take your "it wouldn't be called that" for a long time and raise you. Kaladin is good with the spear because he will be good with the spear. Timeline doesn't matter with these things.
We're in
This
the
is
spiritual
destiny, people.
realm, baby.
This is destiny. If you would hit Kaladin with a spike at the right time, you could have become a herald instead. You just
Maybe.
Maybe. People who don't watch this show all the time are very confused as to what we're talking about.
Well, they should go look at your photograph of the Hemorrhagy chart from the Hero of Ages.
which is still the best photo that we have of it. Right?
Yeah, there's a great photo of it, and there's a spike that steals destiny.
It's so hard
Maybe.
to take.
May steal destiny.
May
Steal destiny.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah,
Well,
Brandon's like, it doesn't steal destiny. Actually, guys, it's actually ferrochemical, quaternary powers.
Well,
Sorry.
that's because they don't understand.
Told you.
They don't understand fortune, and they think it's destiny, but it's not
We
destiny.
all
it's
know
fortune.
to really steal
But there's
destiny,
already a
you need to
fortune
use a
one.
crystal spike. Come on, guys. We all know this now. That's how it works.
Crystal spike.
We don't need to
have
talk about
opinions.
that now.
We have
Yeah, don't do that.
Hemorrhagy.
Yeah. New Oathpact is completely different. It is not a cage on Braze. I would say it's more of like a shield around Roshar, if we're like using that metaphor. It's kind of a shield protecting Spren somehow from retribution. Somehow. it's a little vague.
Okay, so wait. Yeah, in my mind, it's almost like a promise they're holding retribution to. Like, you will not, we exert this force on honor, and you will not destroy the Spren, because we have this power of honor that we've isolated, and we're using that leverage to prevent you from unmaking the Spren that are a part of your power.
And it's like sealed by Adonalcium's power through the wind, right?
Yeah,
Like
is that what
too.
I was gonna say? There was a moment where that was said, right?
Yeah, it was in Teravangian's ending where he tries to destroy the Spren, and the wind's like, no, these are claimed by another, sealed by Adonalcium's power,
here,
or maybe
I've got
God's
it.
power. Okay,
Let's see.
Hit us.
Okay, here we go. So this is Wind and Truth 145, to weep for the end of all things. All right,
Great chapter titles in daytime, guys.
Yeah, now to deal with the Spren, pieces of the old honor, remnants, dangling threads, and a possible problem in years to come. If he could be undermined, it would be by them. He breathed in, reaching to draw all Spren of odium and of honor to him. Those only of cultivation he'd have to find, and nothing happened. As he tried to draw the Spren towards him, the power refused to absorb them. They are protected, his powers said. By what? Retribution demanded. By an oath in a circle, the powers said. By Adonalcium's strength. 10 stand against you, using a piece of us within them. Honor demands their oaths be followed. That was frustrating. He was supposed to be able to act unrivaled.
So it almost sounds like in those final moments, they're like, hey, we promise that we'll take care of the Spren, and since your retribution doesn't have honor in you, you can't do anything about it. Like,
That's kind of what it is.
Kind of.
I mean, yeah.
In reading that, and I hadn't noticed this, of like, Retribution's talking about absorbing all the Void Spren too. Like, he's just gonna kill all of them. And it sounds to me like they are also protected, which is good, because we have gotten very little Void Spren information, so that's good. I like that. But
Can you imagine? We get no Void Spren lore, and then Brandon destroys them all. And we're like, well,
I 100% think, listening to that when he's saying, like, if there's a problem in the future, it'll come from the Spren. He's not thinking about, like, Syl. He's thinking about Mishram and Syanat and, like, the Unmade.
I mean,
No,
but also like the
I think he's
Radiance.
talking about the Radiant Spren.
Yeah, like I think all of them, and like I think that's foreshadowing what we're gonna do in the future, right? Like, yeah,
He's gonna be talking
Radiants.
about both.
I mean, certainly it would be a lot easier for Retribution if there were no Radiants. I mean, it's still bad for the Radiants, but like eating up all of those Spren and things would certainly make his job easier.
But it's such a good thing he didn't do that. Like, for the singers, like obviously, like, he would have figured out some way to fix the singers after he lobotomized them again, because he ripped the part of their soul that like is bonded with this friend.
That's
But,
the
like,
worst.
Yeah.
That's the worst idea ever. Like it's just like, oh, whoops, I pulled the plug out again. Damn it, you know.
Ah, I'm rushing.
Ugh.
This is bad.
Yeah.
He
We
just
should slow
connects to
down.
all the singers and gives them forms of power connected directly to him. Problem solved.
That's probably exactly what he'd do. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, Retribution, you just needed Sazed's copper mines. And if you had that, then you would know that these would be bad ideas. But it is wild that the Oath actually does protect Void Spren, which was not obvious to me until you reread that. So good. Like, obviously, the Enlightened Spren and stuff are very important. So that's probably a reason for that.
It doesn't comment on the Spren that are mixed honor cultivation. Because it talks about the ones of honor and odium generically, and then like I'll need to hunt down the ones that are of cultivation alone.
Yeah, I feel like he would have to destroy those manually. Like, is my thought on it. Is like he would just have to tear those apart. And he might be able to. He could probably, though, if you're like 50, like you're a decent portion honor, like you don't want to lose that. Maybe they've got enough control of their own vesture that you couldn't unmake somebody that was a mix.
Though to be clear, I think all of them are protected, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
But
You're
It's just
thinking-
before he knew they were protected.
Yeah.
What was he planning?
I guess like he can suck up odium and honor investiture because that's him, and then like he just doesn't auto get to do that for cultivation stuff, right? And so any mixture, you take that honor stuff, they're dead, it's fine. And the specific cultivation ones, you know, he's got to hunt down.
I was just thinking more if it was like, you know, we know that the Radiant Spren are gradients. Like, did they have enough of an individual power that you wouldn't be able to call part of their power away from them? Or would you be able to
power, you probably could, right?
Yeah, I think so.
My read is that that's exactly what he's trying to do, right? So you are a high Spren, you are, 70% honor, 30% cultivation or whatever. Retribution is going to leave you 30% of yourself. That's not enough for you to be a thing. You die.
And then just that cultivation investiture just goes back into the spiritual realm or whatever, right? Something like that.
Whatever. Go through, break it up so it's not like forming living beings.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. That seems sensible to me.
I think that's consistent with how I've been thinking about things. Like the old Oathpact is kind of a cage that is pointing in. You are keeping something inside, and the new one is I guess it's not a cage, but it's like a fort pointing out. You are keeping something out of the thing that you are protecting.
Shield.
I think it's important though to like for people like not to like infuse that with odium not being, I guess, retribution not being able to act on Rishar. It's just that he's like restricted in this one specific way.
I think it's just it is just protecting the Spren.
I think the going to Braze part is because they are sort of using this old model. I think it's like, okay, we have this almost like I have like the vision in my head. I'm just trying to think of the words of how to like describe
like
it.
a prototype.
But like almost like I'm like, is there a word for something where it's like I'm imagining almost like sort of a skin, but where like the inside has almost been like partially emptied out, and they're like revitalizing it with their oaths, kind of. I guess I don't know. And
I don't know if that's a word.
Because the husk, like they're revitalizing the husk of the old Oathpact to do this new thing, and because of that, it's mimicking the form in terms of like going to Braze and leaving their bodies to seal it away. But there's nothing to what they're trying to do that inherently needs that. It's just like this is the avenue that they can get the power and use the power to do the thing they want. And it already has some structure to it.
Yeah. My thought on this is that at the end, like they do shuffle off like their mortal coil and like lose their bodies. And I think that it's just like the mechanism that is like Braze, like drawing in souls just happens. Like, because that's unrelated to the Oathpact. So like they get yeeted back there, not because they have to be there or anything. It's just like, well, that's just what happens to loose souls, loose cognitive shadows, like in the Roshan system. Like they get yeeted to Braze.
Yeah. That's
Then one other.
Isn't there a line about like their physical form being disrupted by like some sort of shockwave, and they're like, it would have destroyed us if not for the new Oathpact, but instead it's just kind of blowing us up right now.
Sure.
I don't remember one specifically. But the other point I want to make is that like for the old Oathpact, like it's a useful metaphor to like envision like a circle around Braze. For the new Oathpact, like the circle of protection is definitely more metaphorical.
Yes,
it's like it's not around a planet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because it could be on any of the Spren on any of the planets, right? Like presumably there's Void Spren on Braze and stuff, right?
Spren are now leaving the Rosharan system. Like, so it's like it's Cosmere wide at this point.
Oh, that's an interesting thought too. Yeah.
The other main kind of down, like, you know, there was a big loss with the breaking of the oaths in the end, where there were lots of nice restrictions on the power in the shards that no longer exist because Dalinar blew it all up.
Yep.
And the other one that was really nice to have was that the shards couldn't just destroy the followers of their enemies, you know, like they were like, we're protecting our followers. And that, I assume, was also lost. And so I'm curious if new Oathpact helps with that, or if that's a thing they'll have to contend with going forward.
I don't think so, because like you can't smite people. Like I feel like there's also like all of the shards agreed to do that, so it's not necessarily gone because it's like it's not part of but Dalinar said got rid of all oaths, not just the ones with odium. Ooh.
It is possible that there's going to be some inherent, the power of honor would want Taravangian to keep upholding it.
To not
right?
smite people.
I expect that's the hint away VM that we're gonna use for anything that's too inconvenient, right?
Picking up the power of honor will end up being the greatest mistake Taravangian ever made.
Possibly.
I 100% believe that's already the case.
Yeah.
I guess that's true. Just manifest immediately.
There was a thing about like how odium used to just kill any Dawn Singers that would not agree with him, and that's why so many of the remaining ones are so much on board with his agenda.
And that was restricted. That was mostly what I was pointing at, but I won't veer us too much into discussing the mechanics of the Shard Oaths.
That's another episode. Contract.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting that in this new Oathpact mechanic, I totally get why the Heralds spirits have gone to Braze. That totally makes sense to me mechanically. It is interesting how there would be fused torture of them, and so they needed this additional aspect of their own nice vision. Because I just
That's just spite. That's just like they've been holding us back for thousands of years and we're pissed off and we want to torture them some more.
There is like a question to me though that is like, why have the party here then? You know, like if they're like, oh, we got pulled to Braze, okay, here we are. You know, we don't have to remain here with the new Oathpact. Why go into Vision here? Why not walk away? You know, why not leave Braze and you can go into your night vision somewhere else, or you can respawn on
I
the
think
Shah
they
right
just
away.
can't really move the cognitive shadow until they respawn bodies, I guess.
Do you think it's like an instant process? Like they just kind of like go right back? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's they don't have time like once they get there to like go, because like as soon as they're there, it's like the hunt is on. And like they're not going to necessarily be together because some of them are already there.
Yeah,
so it's like we're just going to preemptively go into vacation vision, and it will be fine.
The beach episode, yes.
Spiritual spell.
But yeah, like fused 100% torturing them out of spite, because like what else are like? Hey, we found these Herald souls. What are we going to do with them? Let's torture them for old time.
They are bound to the god hatred and have gone insane and are mimicking the same patterns for thousands of years. And these guys who have been keeping them prisoner for that entire time show back up again. What do you think they're going to do?
It definitely makes sense. My concern is it seems to me that we've been introduced to multiple things that would allow them to not only cause pain to the Herald souls, but to permanently destroy them, such as anti-light. And like
Okay.
they're aware of Nightblood, and like that's just a thing that Seth has. Like, you know, there's no reason they couldn't just be like, all right, to Shinovar to get that sword, you know, like, and let's go get that sword, and we're gonna go on the Herald
Okay,
souls.
that's a valid point.
Yeah.
I think they, considering how skittish they were of like stabbing Jezrien
Yeah, that's
themselves,
interesting.
they might be even more skittish to engage with Seth.
I just don't know why they were so skittish about that. Yeah.
Well, they don't like anti-light because it can kill them. Like, they're making Moash do all the anti-light stuff, so I don't think...
Well, that was anti-storm.
I think...
Yeah. Won't kill them.
But I agree.
But
I
still,
agree
like,
with what Grace is saying.
They're skittish, and like I don't think other than Raboniel we see any fused use any type of anti-light. They're just like,
And
we're making it and we're giving it to Moash, and he's gonna go fight and kill things with it.
Yeah, hell use
Well,
it.
yeah.
I think there's an element of fear of like what it represents, which is like the destruction of the immortal, you know, which to them, it's also a threat to them as well. And so there's a certain reluctance, I think, to just kind of engage with it. But there is an interesting mention in this book too. I don't know if it's related or not to whatever is going on with Weiry, but that when he does that with the anti-light dagger, that is also the moment that Odium corrupts Jezrien's honor blade. So maybe there's something interesting going on there. Yes, there's a quote about that.
Oh, really? I know there's a thing about the honor blade being corrupted. I still don't necessarily know what that means.
I know, but it was just interesting to me. Let's see.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm fully on board with like the fused wouldn't use anti-stormlight against the heralds because that's too existentially terrifying to them. That tracks for me.
Yeah, and I guess if retribution is like out, I would assume one or two or three books of the back half, like at least probably book one or whatever. Or sorry, book
Maybe.
6. That like retribution wouldn't just like order them. It's like, yeah, I got these heralds, man. Like, what are we doing?
And like,
I guess
as point of fact, like Stormlight doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Like, could they get the Stormlight to make anti-Stormlight? Like, would they have to make anti-Warlight? Like,
Yeah, probably.
would that work?
But
like, if it works on the Heralds, it would also work on them. So they like, would they want that around?
Yeah, they probably wouldn't want that.
That's a fair question.
I think Elle would be willing to do it. Elle is, brave and not scared of anti-light, and he would, but he is off doing more important things. So
Yeah, that's fair. So okay, here's my quote though.
All right.
The Windrunner honor blade has been corrupted. Nail set called from ahead. He turned and glided up the air instead. Yada yada. Our king Jezrien was killed by the Windrunner traitor Weiry. Odium took his honor blade unto himself in that moment, corrupting it. And there's just like there has always just been this Weiry Odium connection. He's had like there are these moments where it hadn't happened yet, right? Because that's the end of Oathbringer when he kills Jezrien. But he's got this kind of like gloom to him that Kaladin notices. So it's just, I wonder if maybe he was doing something special with Moash in that moment. And that was another reason that he didn't want to use it fused, was he was making a tool.
Yeah, I don't know.
Possibly.
it's funny to me that he's called the Windrunner traitor, and it's like, he never swore oaths. He wasn't even like a squire when he left Kaladin.
Well,
He
Which
Bridge
for
4
are the
traitor.
Yeah. Which for are the Windrunners? I'm wondering when they return. Sorry, I'm trying to phrase why I am a little confused about the whole new Oathpact situation. Because previous returns involved a broken oath.
Yes. I think that's a fair question to have, Eric.
Right. And so I'm just wondering mechanically how they do return, and like, does that weaken anything? Because like, it did seem like the Oathpact got weaker and weaker because they kept breaking, right? Like, it still existed, or maybe the Heralds felt more and more strained. I guess
they got worn down.
Right.
They definitely got worn down.
So I'm just wondering if that has any effect on the Spren when the Heralds do decide to return, or if they're good. I don't know.
I think that the function of how returns work is an echo of the old Oathpact and does not matter for protecting the Spren in the new one.
Mhm.
I think it's like the mechanics of it are still encoded into how the Oathpact works, but they could return now and it wouldn't affect the Spren. They're just choosing to wait to get into like a better place mentally to help people.
Yeah, that I agree with that. Like, it's not, they're not going to need to break in order to go back to Roshar. It's just like they're going to reach a point, emerge from vacation vision, fight their way out of Braze to get back to Roshar, and it's like they're still protecting this friend that entire time.
Yeah, I think if in the past they'd been on Braze, and instead of hiding, planet hide and seek, they had fled and left the planet, I think that also would have counted, But in this case, I think what they'll happen is they'll just be like, all right, we're ready to exit this vision. They'll kind of immerse themselves. Maybe they'll fight the souls that are tortured, like something will happen.
Maybe I don't know how they get back to Roshar.
But like they will just return. Like they will just initiate a return, but it will not require them to break their oaths in this way a return would have before.
I guess in a sense, they're not breaking their oath to defend the Spren, right? Whereas when the Heralds broke before, it was because they can no longer hold back the darkness type thing. And so like that's an aspect. And so that's not in play here.
Yeah, because like there was a locationality implied with the first Oathpact, like going back to like the circle around Braze, like the entire point of the Oathpact at that point was to keep the fused on Braze. Like if you let them out or if you leave your post, like that's breaking what you said you were going to do. Whereas like there isn't locationality for the second Oathpact. It's like they're protecting the Spren no matter where in the Cosmere they are, wherever the Spren is or wherever the Herald is. So unless like they go up to Retribution and say like, yes, you can suck the soul out of that Spren over there, they're not going to be breaking that oath.
So
I guess they can be tortured in that way. They're like, give Odium power over this Spren. Come on. But
it's interesting with Battar. But I kind of want to talk about Battar involved in that, which is a little interesting. Yeah. Okay, cool. That is a satisfactory answer for me. So I like that. That kind of indicates to me that like, yeah, this is definitely the last desolation because like there's no more cycles to like protect on Braze. That's totally broken.
The true desolation.
Actually, the last desolation was 4,500 years ago.
Okay. Sorry, the final desolation, but I don't want to talk about that one epigraph that says final lowercase f desolation, which I'm still annoyed that it doesn't just say last desolation, but whatever. But it is the last one.
You could just call it the final boss desolation. I don't know. Feels like a final boss.
The true desolation.
We have a name.
Of all
true desolation.
True desolation. Yeah. Well, I
are we sure this time?
Technically, the true desolation happens when the heralds are within the vision. Like the true desolation is right now, and so I'm just saying when the heralds returns. Oh, okay. The true desolation is actually. Okay.
Yeah, it's still the true desolation. Yeah. The desolations are no longer tied to the Oathpact.
Okay, good. All right. I like this rationalization. This is actually helping me a lot. I appreciate that. But just like what that looks like for the Heralds, like the whole goal in like a regular return is like, okay, yeah, we got to kill as many of the fused as possible, right? And then activate isolation. That doesn't matter anymore. So like the Herald's goal is going to be very different. So like I don't really know what this true desolation is going to be. I was going to say last desolation again, I swear to God. So like I wonder if we're just going to get like some very different Herald action, but at the same time I think we are promised Heralds being awesome on screen from viewpoint and them being very cool and fighting a lot.
I suspect those heralds might be Talon and Ash.
I think
among others.
And Kaladin probably. Kaladin probably will have some viewpoints too of being awesome.
I suppose. I'm curious how much Brandon will stick to moving him off screen. Like that will make time will tell. You know,
I think we'll have some. We'll have some.
He'll have some. He'll certainly have some. But
I mean, I think the cycle is just over.
Yeah,
I think we are in a perpetual desolation mode. Like this is, you know, it is either eternal desolation or there's no desolation at all, and this is just the status quo. And so the Heralds returning does not mark the start of a new cycle. It is them going, okay, it is time for us to join this new status quo and do something about it.
This is the first time a return and a desolation are two different things.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, true. Yes.
I think the Herald modus operandi is going to be the achieve lasting peace. Like that's the point of the back five, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's like finding an end to this endless war.
Defeat retribution, find end to war. Basically.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like find a way for like the powers to want the war to end.
Right. Because that's the solution. Yep.
Yeah. Find some sort of moral victory as well, and in my mind, kind of unite the planet for space endgame to occur.
Yeah.
You know.
Sure.
Yeah. I imagine there is going to be extensive combat involved with that, but like it's not going to be like we need to murder all the fused so we can keep them locked up. It's like we need to like somehow convince the fused to not fight us anymore because we don't want to fight them anymore. We need to like join forces.
Yeah.
They need like that's Kaladin's new squad for the back half, convincing the fuse to join with him.
Yes.
You know,
or you gotta convince the 9, easy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the 9.
The squad will just be like stone pillars. Easy.
Didn't Odium like dissolve the 9 for Fire like minute 1? He was like, the 9.
No, L just did not care about them at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It was L, not Fire. Yeah. Kind of Fire.
Yeah. Kind of Fire. It's interesting because the status of the fused is actually pre-original Oathpact where I can just respond, like it's not a problem, like kill me, whatever, I don't care. Unless like
they don't even need Odium's like involvement anymore. Like they have the natural mechanism of the Everstorm.
I don't know. The Everstorm's weird now, but probably.
I think so, because at the very least, Odium claimed that he was unable to prevent the fuse from respawning because of the Everstorm, and so unless he's fundamentally changed, like I feel like what'll happen is it'll be. Didn't we get a line from Venli's POV at the end that like at a certain time every day, like they're able to recharge their gemstones?
Yeah, and maybe the fuse get to come back every single day.
I thought that'll
like
be the moment. Yeah, if they're responding at that moment, they'll have a chance.
Terrifying. I mean, I guess you could just keep killing fused until they're insane. That's the way to
because
do
like
it.
I don't think Taravangian would disable that mechanism of the Everstorm, because that would just mean he had to do it himself, and he's like he has better things to do with his time.
He's got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, agreed. I agree with that.
Well, if you want to kill the fused, you've got anti-light now. I guess kind of anti. I think anti-whatever light. I think
you need anti-war light, and I think it would kill either at this stage. That's probably just not as efficient, right? As anti-stormlight or anti-void light, but like get enough of it, I think it'll kill them both. Yeah,
it will just probably work.
Yeah, except those pure cultivation Spren. they're good from that.
People are like going to the valley to like harvest the Night Watcher mist so they can kill cultivation Spren.
To get tower light and lure a cultivation Spren there and get anti-tower light and kill them that way. Get them.
There we go.
Theoretically possible, yeah.
The sibling would be so mad.
Yeah.
The sibling would be so mad. Okay, so here's a question talking about the new Oathpact that I had, which is...
Yes.
So, we believe, it sounds like we believe that this is protecting Honor Spren, protecting Void Spren from being remade. Like, Cultivation Spren are, like, kind of theoretically protected just because he has no power over them.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kaladin, that we're protecting these Spren, we're protecting our standard Spren. A little too late to protect the Stormfather. May he rest in peace.
Well,
he was also just manually obliterated. He was not slurped up.
That's true. That's a good point. He wasn't. His power isn't called upon. He was just. He got, which I assume could happen to any Spren still. Like if Odium wanted to, he could be hunting them down. Maybe that's why there are fewer Spren now.
That's what he's saying. Like, this is how I would need to deal with the Spren that are purely of cultivation.
But I don't think he can.
So. What do we think about like the sibling? Like, was that protected inherently by what Kaladin did? Was what Navani did? Was that irrelevant, or were her protections greater? Like they prevented the storm, like Retribution, from just destroying the tower manually.
Yes, like in terms of like protecting the Spren, what Navani and the Sibling did is irrelevant because Spren are protected by the new Oathpact. In terms of like protecting Earthiru itself, I do think like what they did is protecting.
Okay.
That's
whether or not that was necessary because of the rules of the contest, because like Azir is safe, so like Earthiru should have been safe. So like I don't 100% think it was necessary, but it's a really cool concept, so I don't want to argue against it too much.
Here's what I'll say is that I feel like what happened is like it wasn't immediate that Retribution had kind of like asserted who he was either. You know what I mean? Like he had not kind of settled 100% on exactly what he was going to do. You know, he's like, oh, I'm going to defend the oaths. Like I will keep to my oaths, you know, even if they're broken. So like it's very possible that he could have just been like in that moment been like, and bam, there goes the tower, you know, and then he's like, maybe I should have done that. But you know, you can act pretty quickly.
It's also possible that like the Sibling and Navani were just like, we have a split second to make this decision knowing Retribution is here. We don't know what he's gonna do. Let's put the protections up. Like even if it ended up not being necessary.
Yeah, I guess that's more, I would like to believe that if what they were doing was pointless, that the Sibling would be able to tell. You know what I mean? Like they'd be like, like we can, you know, like we're gonna power down now. Like we didn't. Okay, it was a good, you know, nice fire drill, everybody.
It's just like hard to see the need for it currently. The way the ending is written.
I think I can rationalize it as the new Oathpact protects the Sibling from being magically drawn back to Retribution. And what the Sibling did was to essentially physically protect themselves from being, like physically destroyed by Retribution.
And like protect all the people in there, like they will be safe.
The entire
so like the fused won't be able to invade or whatever. Not that sounds like a good idea, but maybe with Retribution's power, like weird crap
the
could
Sibling
happen.
is comatose or asleep or something. So maybe their beats are not there to drive the fused mad.
Well, I guess I'm imagining if the Sibling didn't activate this protection mode, right? Could Retribution just like go in and like send an army to seize Earthiru? Right?
Technically, no. He shouldn't be able to do that because like he can't do that to Azir.
Yeah. Well, that just confuses me more.
He's following the spirit of
the lockdown. Then,
it's a little fuzzy, unfortunately.
And it's weird with like, did Dalinar lose the contest? Was there no contest at all? Like, because Dalinar was the king of Earthiru.
But yes,
the rules,
but like whether or not he won or lost, like is largely irrelevant because the borders were frozen at the beginning of the contest.
Sure,
like Azir was safe from the beginning. Earthiru was safe from the beginning.
Okay, fair.
It's like the only thing like whether or not Dalinar won is whether or not Alethkar and Herdaz got flipped.
Yeah, Earthiru and Azir were never in question at that point.
I guess one aspect of the Sibling's rationale is the Sibling probably knows that something very bad is happening with the oaths and maybe could feel Dalinar breaking oaths. Potentially. Like I could buy that in some respects. And so the Sibling would have no way of knowing that Retribution would hold to those oaths. Right? Like, how would they know? Right? So the contest, froze it, but the Siblings like, I mean, I don't like this is the worst thing that has possibly happened on Roshar. So I need to shut this down because this is what I can do, and I have to do it. Right?
Yeah, it's like I definitely think character-wise, totally makes sense for the Sibling to be doing this. That I don't think is in doubt.
Yeah.
It's like getting into the more writerly of like, okay, Brandon, why is this necessary? Which is like he wants Ethereal to be isolated from the rest of the planet, which is a really cool idea. It's just trying to figure out like the in-world rationalization for that.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose is just like that's what the sibling would do.
Yeah. I am not convinced that the sibling can just like lift those protections willy-nilly now that they're put in place.
Mm-hmm.
We obviously don't know what those are, but like the sibling needed to bond to Navani to kind of like fully come in online after hibernating the first time. I'm not convinced that there doesn't need to be like some, I don't know, like magical shenanigans to like undo the protections now that they've
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, well,
so maybe it's fine and people know that, but like, all right, it's been done and there's nothing we can do to do it at the moment.
Yeah,
like I'm kind of imagining big thing in book 6 is like ending those protections so like they can get out and explore the rest of Roshar and find out what's been going on out there.
It's definitely it could be a really interesting catalyst for an inciting incident potentially, that the siblings' protections are going down, and then we get our main characters are starting to explore this, and they don't really know. Like, they probably have some hints, maybe, but they don't really know what it's like, and so that allows the reader to explore this new status quo.
The image that's kind of in my brain, that I don't think this is how it's going to work, because this is how I would write it, and I'm not Brandon, so Brandon's probably going to write it different.
Probably.
Is that like sibling starts to wake up like when the heralds are returning, because the heralds are trying to like get into your Theru, and like the sibling is just like, somebody's trying to get inside me, what's going on? And then they figure out it's just the heralds, and so like stuff happens.
I think that you can rationalize the sibling stuff. Like, you could see that it entered like it's like in a deep meditative state, or like maybe time, it's perceiving time differently. Like, it's in a time bubble while it's doing that, and it's like, oh crap, like 10 years just went by, whoopsie, like Brandon's liking to play with time right now. It would seem. So I think it makes good sense. And I think there's another question too, which is that Retribution is holding to the borders. Does that prevent the the people of his kingdoms or other human kingdoms, other human agents, from conquering Azir and or Urithiru? Is that forsworn by what Odium has said? Must he enforce the borders?
Yes.
Okay.
Like he promised, like because it's the whole thing is like, we will not attack you, not going to say anything. Like, you could totally attack us. Maybe we'll antagonize it. So you attack us and then everything's kaput.
What if like a bunch of human refugees come in though, and they like overthrow the kingdom, and it's still a human kingdom, but like you could.
I think that,
like, I feel like there are ways.
The shenanigans of like, technically that's allowed.
So I was thinking like maybe the siblings thought as well is just like, here's it, like, I'm putting a dome up. Like, we're just like, no matter what, like, we're not going to, like, there's no fused army is coming here. Like, no matter what, like, we don't know what's happening, but we're just forswearing, we're being as safe as possible. Even if technically we're probably okay. And Odium probably wouldn't destroy us.
Yeah, it's like,
I cannot get used to that.
Yeah, it's basically closing all of the loopholes.
Yeah.
And I assume, do we think the Night Watcher is hiding? Running away too? Like, that was my,
I kind of hope, like, ideal situation is the Night Watcher got into Ethereum before the border went up. I don't know how plausible that is.
I really
Cultivation could have told her.
Jess's idea. I mean, Jess's idea that the Night Watcher will be in that like lifey room that the sibling had for that. And so like I think that would be a really interesting idea. I think we have to get cultivation stuff in the back half in some respects, because Brandon was being super cagey with cultivation, and I'm gonna assume anything super cagey in the front 5 will be relevant in the back 5. And so I think we will get Night Watcher stuff.
Do we think we're gonna get night stuff?
Yes.
I think eventually.
I can be a promise.
Yes.
Or do we think Night will show up in another book? Like non-Roshar book.
And we just is like, yes, I am the Night.
I think Night is just, it doesn't exist anymore.
I think
See,
it's
oh,
fine.
Ancient Spreader for Shar podcast. I've got questions about stone.
We will
too.
have an old god podcast for sure. We have to have an old gods podcast because there's a lot of stuff with the wind and the stone and night. And the night is the weirdest one for sure because that one's not mentioned in the Eyeless Delay. So I wonder if Brandon made it up for this book. That's possible.
What about a piece of the knight's cloak, though, Eric? It still refers to a piece of the knight's cloak that she stole.
That's ancient.
Okay.
Ancient lore.
Oh wow. Okay.
He's been thinking about wind for a long time.
Yeah, that's great. This is making me very excited for back half though of just how this is going to look. It's wild to think about because I have no idea how the new status quo and how the conflicts are going to look, but there's a lot of juicy stuff that we can have.
A lot of potential, narrower focus. Be cool.
Yeah, I mean to start, yeah, for sure. I really like the idea of Urithiru being opening and like our people are starting to like do missions out there. And by people, I mean Lift and Renard.
Yeah,
that feels like end of part 1 resolution.
Yeah, sure.
I think we spend like a part exploring the, at this point, old status quo. And by the end of that, or part 2 or whatever, we're like, okay, well, it's time to kick things into gear.
Yeah.
A question for all of you. So for this, like part 1 or whatever, are we only going to get like one side viewpoints? Like, are we only going to get like everybody outside Urithiru and it's a mystery of what's going on inside until like the border comes down or some other arbitrary cutoff? Or is like, are we going to be stuck inside Urithiru for a period of time? Or are we just going to be like freely in and out from the beginning?
I think we'll start in Urithiru because that's just this is kind of just rank speculation, but it's like Urithiru is what we know. So like this is where the reader starts with what we know. Like we're in this bubble with them. We don't know what's happening, and then we go into the world with the character. We learn about it.
I could maybe see something where like part 1 we're just in Urithiru, part 2 we're getting like Adolin and Shalon and I don't know like Yen again, and then the end of part 2 is like first contact. Maybe.
Ooh, we're writing good fanfic here. I'm sure the commenters will really hate that. But,
hey, we know exactly what we want. No,
we don't.
For the record, I have no game in this horse. I'm like, any of these could be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not betting on any of them.
And I mean,
oh no,
if we've learned anything about Brandon Stormlight books, it's that all of our predictions and the core plot line of every single book that we predict is completely wrong every single time. And Brandon just has like some insane plot line where Rhythm of War, we did not expect, invade Urithiru. And this plot book, it's not, go into the spiritual realm. I'm like, okay.
We didn't call that one.
So Brandon's probably got crazy ideas for these other ones, and we'll just have to, see how that goes.
Oh yeah, no, just a thought experiment, and I think like the dating on some of those Wind and Truth like epigraphs and like the writer like being implied to be in contact with Yasna, that to me feels like it's a shorter time period than I kind of thought would be the time skip. Like I think was it like 6 or like 8 years? It seems like those are being written after.
I think 6 years after Stormfall is
yeah.
Things.
So like to me, I thought
at least.
I thought it would be a longer time jump, and maybe it won't be, and it's just going to be like 6 years, which is plenty of time.
No, I think it'll be 10 to 15, but like I don't think
I think it'll be longer, but they'll have like more lightspan reads or something.
Maybe maybe it won't be as alien because they've been writing for years, or maybe the dome will open down for years when we come back. Like it's hard to say.
Like, there's also like the thing at the end of Wind and Truth where like Maya is able to get to like the cognitive realm side of Urithiru and like talk across the divide.
Yell at Yasna.
Hello. Yeah.
Basically. So it's like there is a mechanism for contact. It's just not speedy or effective.
That's true.
Because like the other thing is like Spren can't cross between the physical and the cognitive anymore.
Is that true?
I'm pretty sure.
I feel like we will see those. Well, I guess those new Windrunner Spren, they did transition.
Yes.
Look, that arc in book 4, there's gonna be a new set of Windrunners sometime in the back half.
Yeah, but there's like
I consider
or whatever.
You know,
I consider
well,
the Unoath to be the payoff of that Adolin plotline. Like
Yeah,
that
I mean,
to
that's
me,
true. That's true.
is
That's
because he like that was when he forged the connection with the Spren
That's
that would
true.
become the blades that were the Unoath. So like that all works. I applaud Brandon for that. He did it.
Yeah,
that all made
that's
sense.
Yeah, so going back to my comment about Spren not being able to transition, I
Yes.
did find the thing that put that into my brain,
Great.
and I found something else like a few paragraphs before.
Fantastic.
So this is Adolin's viewpoint in chapter 147. Adolin looked to Yanagon, again dressed in his regalia, though the young man could summon his plate and blade like a radiant at any moment. Somehow their armor and swords worked without Stormlight, in contrast to those of ordinary shard bearers, whose blades could not be bonded and plate could not be repaired. The armaments of the Unoaths still functioned. Maya said something had been done at the end by the Heralds to shield and protect the Spren, and this was a side effect. Radiants could still summon blades and plate too, but Adolin's Unoaths could do it without Surges or Oaths. They were something new. And then a little bit later,
Interesting.
Maya's returned from her trip to Urithiru. As the Oath Gates in the Span Reeds no longer functioned, sending her seemed the best way. Normal Radiant Spren were unable to travel to the other side, but Maya, with whatever strange bond she had with Adolin, could.
Okay.
Wow,
this
great
is
finds.
yeah. Well, this is my assertion though, is that have Radiant Spren ever been able to do that? Have we ever seen Syl just go, oh, I'm looking into the cognitive realm, Kaladin?
Well,
like Pattern
no.
can, I guess, a little bit, but like they can still use that power, obviously, because Yost isn't manipulating that. So
yeah, that's not what I think this is talking about. It's like Radiant Spren can't transition, period. So
they
no
can't go to
more
the physical realm at all. They can't.
Yeah,
come
so
back.
like any that are in the physical realm are stuck there. If they can change and bond radiance, whatever, any Radiant Spren in the cognitive realm is stuck there. No bonding. Unless there's a human in the cognitive realm, I'm assuming.
Well, that makes a certain amount of sense in the context of Nodum as well, in that he's not like, you know, I mean, like this is going to be the status of Spren that have now been trapped in the physical realm that aren't bonded. You know, is they're just going to be awake but unable to go back to Shadesmar, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
like that's almost a necessary thing to happen.
Part of
yes.
But like part of my thought process here is that like Radiant Spren transitioning to the physical realm to like find bond mates is kind of just a natural expression of Spren like bleeding into the physical for normal Spren reasons. So if like there's some sort of restriction like between the realms now where like Spren can't cross anymore,
so
then
that's why.
Yeah, like you wouldn't see as many Spren around because like they're not. It's just like it's whatever Spren we're already like peeking out on this side that you're gonna see.
As soon as you said this, I'm like, I know exactly what thought process you're going with. 100%. That does make sense.
Yeah.
This line also makes me increasingly confident that there will be other things that we will find out were tucked into new Oathpact as needed.
True.
You know, like because like we got this thing where we're like, oh, and also by the way, there's been a separation enforced between the realms because of it. You know, you're like, oh,
well, it's like that. I don't know if that part is the part of the new Oathpact. I don't know why Radiant Spren can't cross. The interesting thing is like the Unoathed are part of the Oathpact or consequence of the Oathpact now, and I'm like,
sure,
how?
Sure.
What,
Yes.
Brandon?
They're the new Oathpact magic system. The old one was surge binding for the old Oathpact, and now,
yeah, sucks to be a shard bearer though. That's just like, oh well, I guess, you know.
But like, will there shards long exist, or will they slowly wake up and return to the Shadesmar? You know, like I feel like it may just be a short period of time where those even exist anymore now that the Dead Eyes are healed.
That's interesting. That's
Which
actually a really
I'm
interesting
still squint my eyes at all of the Dead Eyes being healed because I feel like it should just be the Unoathed. I feel like there should still be work put in.
I would have liked that. That would have been cool. Do you think that only previously dead-eyed, this is still technically related to Eric because we know that the Unoath are related to the Oathpact.
Look, I totally forgot about that. That's for sure. No, this is good. This is good.
Do you think only formerly Dead-Eyed Spren can become Unoathed? Spren like can bond to make an Unoath, or do you think it's just the two paths open to Nahal Spren now is a Nahal bond or an Unoath type bond?
How I would do it, which is again probably not how.
No,
this is just my personal inclination, which probably isn't going to happen, and that's okay.
Yep.
Is that it would have to be a Spren would have had to do the Nahal bond at least once. Like they would need to have been a blade at some point in order to become a blade for an Unoathed. That makes sense to me.
Okay.
To me, it has to be an Unoathed. And I don't have any like mechanical reason. I just think thematically, this idea of like Spren who were like hurt because a bond was broken now have this capacity to sort of form bonds without oaths. I just think like thematically that works for me a little bit better than like, okay, now this is something open to any Spren.
Yeah.
I don't like that because of like Nodum's whole character arc of like, hey, I want to help, but I don't want to like be a Radiant Spren. So it's basically saying like all of this when like Nodum like screw you, like you can't actually help.
They can do what Nodum did.
Famous of Wind Spren. He has a Plead and Blade.
Yeah, really but cool. All the ones who aren't him.
Yeah, they can all do the same thing. They can find Unoath and become an oath themselves. I see what you're getting at though, Ian. Like that's a fair point. And there would also seem to be, the Spren population may someday increase, but if Dead Eyes can't happen anymore, there's only a finite number of Spren that could become Unoath.
We will definitely be doing an Unoath episode, guys. That is 100% likely. Especially because Brandon can't drop us a random Stormlight book sooner than expected, where we didn't quite get through the Rhythm of War topics that we wanted to do. So that will be helpful. I do think, Ian, that yes, this is exactly why Spren are less common. So that's a great quote, and that kind of answers that, because I figured it had to be something to do with the Oathpact. But
just to clarify, so your thought is like, okay, so when this, whatever the cause, when this restriction went into effect that stopped Spren from transitioning across the realms happened, there just so happened that there weren't many Spren in the physical realm at that moment. Is that
it's just like any like finite number like is going to be fewer than all the Spren that are in the Cognitive.
Then not being able to freely, because they weren't all in the physical realm at that time. That's okay. Well, that's a good point, because I was thinking like is there something that's artificially reducing their population in the physical realm as well?
Yeah.
Or not, but
gotcha. Like I could see there could be something along those lines of like Spren just aren't transitioning because physical realm Roshar is a hellscape and not wanting to be there. I feel like if like the Radiant Spren can't do it, like the sub Spren, like
I have a hot take, guys. I think when the Heralds return, I think then that restriction might not need to be in place. That like I think the Heralds return, maybe the Spren are not like locked in some sense. Massive air quotes here, guys, massive. But like I could see that then when the Heralds return, then it's working normally.
I think you're right. And thematically for Brandon, he loves the magic returning thing. And so he set himself up here to do that a second time. It's like true. What will happen is like it's gonna be like low tech, and then they're gonna figure out a way to make the Radiance work again, and they're gonna something will replace the Oath Gates that will maybe be cooler, but like he'll be able to kind of walk us through that again the same way he did in the early books of Stormlight.
Yeah.
And maybe to new heights.
I mean, probably. Like, I was expecting Navani to like just be working on Magitech stuff, and then now she's just in a crystal. So I'm like, I don't know. Like it's disappointing. That's weird to me, but okay.
Yeah. Well, it seemed like Risen had some really impressive sounding designs.
Yes.
That seemed really important. If she's, I don't know if those stayed in the physical realm or not.
Yeah.
Or like wherever she's going, but
steering a little back to the Heralds. I did not think about this when I was reading Wind and Truth, but the comments and the discourse about the book did remind me Dova was just like totally on Teravangian's side, so the Herald Battar. And I find that very interesting. And didn't you say, David, that Battar was the last one to put her hand on the sword?
I think so. And she kind
of the ghosts.
Yeah, Talon was first, and she's got kind of a funny look on her face.
Yeah.
Like she definitely where's it at?
The very last was a woman.
Yeah, the very last was a woman.
A curious expression on her face.
Suitably vague for us to project upon whatever we want there.
Like I think it's really possible that Dova could still be working for Retribution. That's that's possible.
And to remind folks, there was an interlude in this book with Dova where she's been shadow puppeting Carbronth before its sword of destruction. Yep. And Teravangian recruits her to do what was done to Moash with the crystal spikes.
True. Yes.
And her madness has kind of been manifest as being corrupt once the wise counselor.
Did we say Dova is Battar?
Yeah, Dova's Battar.
Dova is Battar.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's... I could go either way on this. Like, I could see her going like deep stealth with her old crew while still working for Retribution. I could also see her because like there's a whole point of like redemption. I saw it earlier.
Yeah, and she is also Prala. Is that where we settled on it when we were looking at go to the flashbacks?
Prala,
or is
Prala is Pyalia.
Oh, you're right. That's it. It's Pyalia.
Okay.
Can't really see her here, but she's right here.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's when like Ishar walked in his sword nail on his he felt Ishar reach out to them and offer something vital, redemption. Which I feel like that could have tipped Dova back from like because like the only reason like she goes to serve Retribution or like Odium at the time is that like her mental psychoses of like the instead of the counselor, like the corrupt person.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity to switch back.
Yeah.
And I could see that working. I could see that not working.
Yeah. She even says in that moment,
it's interesting she's last.
Yeah. She even says at the moment, I'm a Herald of Honor. Like that's like it's not even a past tense thing. Like that, like it's kind of a direct thing where she's like, oh, because I'm a Herald of Honor, this is a perfect opportunity for me to switch sides, to do my thing and be corrupt. But I think that what's interesting is that what Kaladin's task now is to get it, like, kind of dig into the Heralds and try to help them deal with these compulsions that they're dealing with. And, hopefully he's learned a lot and he gets really good at that. He's going to have whatever success. Yeah, he's going to have whatever success he has. And I think that there's the possibility that like they get into that with her, and he learns like, oh, you did this thing. Okay, that's interesting. And that's just like a thing we'll know about her is that maybe she's open to be tempted again in the future, if that's something she's struggling with. Or B, she will be someone that he struggles to get through to, and we're not really going to know what she's kind of doing.
It does feel like a very Brandon thing to me to just be like, okay, there was this corruption from the Well of Control and that's gone now, and there's this offer of redemption. But one of the Heralds was not entirely motivated by the Well of Control in being corrupted, and it's just like it feels like to me it would feel right to have like one of the Heralds be like, I am just tempted by retribution and by greed because that is who I have become and not because of magical corruption.
It does make it seem more interesting. Like we got 10 of these guys,
The Traitor Herald like concept is like definitely like it's been one that's been thrown around for a really long time, and it's definitely one that I've always enjoyed. Yeah.
I don't know. I think the way I read that scene or those scenes is that Dova or Battar is kind of whatever about allegiances. Like she owes nothing to honor, she owes nothing to odium. She's kind of going for the highest bidder, although there's no like bidding in this context, right?
Yeah.
And so the way I read her returning to the Oathpact was curiosity more than anything else. Like the strange expression or the funny expression or whatever is her
A
going,
curious expression.
yeah, oh, this might be interesting. Let's see where this goes.
Yeah, there's about that vibe, and so I could definitely see that.
I don't think she is actively working for Retribution right now. I think she is in an interesting place to come back and be tempted by Retribution and maybe decide, hey, I've spent time with this Heralds, I've listened to what this new Kaladin guy is selling, and I don't buy it. Like,
yeah, sure.
And I mean, like the other piece of context to keep in mind too is that if they fail to refound the Oathpact, they're all going to die, I believe. And so, like, you know, she is. It's not like she's not going to say yes to that, you know, if only to keep her options open.
I am a little surprised one isn't like, yeah, I'm out of here, you know. But
Kalik was the big. You're like, damn, Kalik. I guess you really had it in you after all.
Yeah.
He is notably. I think he looks fainter in like because like all the heralds are kind of appearing as like images or shadows around a ring of honor blades.
Kalak is, though his image was almost completely transparent.
Yeah, I'm just curious what's happening there, because last we checked in with him, he was in the Ghost Bloods or in Felt's control.
Yeah, I'm just like, what's going on with these? You know?
I have a theory.
Yeah.
Which is we learn, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that the heralds are growing even weaker by the time of the present day, and that they're growing, and that some of the heralds are growing concerned about the weaker ones among them. And I believe that Ash and Kalik were listed specifically as being two that were among the weakest. And Ash ultimately, sorry, not Ash, my apologies, Chana, I always mix those two up. Chana, leading to Chana being able to be killed by Shallan, and Kalik in this case just appearing incredibly faint, you know?
Yeah, I kind of just saw that as Kalak is in a different realm.
Yeah.
Like, also, so like, was he trapped in a gem? Like, did they put him into a gem?
I don't know if they did
not.
Or did they just threaten him?
I think
they were like, we're going to keep it status quo for now, I think. So they didn't. They could have done it, but the plan wasn't to do it yet.
Yeah, I think for me, this ending is like, it was so cool in the moment, but I'm like, what about these other heralds? Like, I feel like we didn't close the thread on like Dova, or like we did with Town and Ash and Chana, so that was good. That's 3. But like, there's just a few more that I'm like, how did Kalak? I don't know. It's cool. It's cool enough. It's fine.
No, I don't think that we for me, like I kind of reread this scene again, and I think that the point that Brandon is going for here is a little bit. It's like we don't need to necessarily know what they've all been through, and clearly some have been focused on a little more than others. But what is important to count in that moment is that they're all willing to stand up and say, "I will try again."
Yeah,
and that's the most important thing, is that every single one of them takes that opportunity when it was given to them, knowing that they might be signed up for more torture potentially, or they could run away. I think, I don't know, but you know, but I get what you mean. I think it would have just been, there's literally not the room, or it would have been like, all right, we're cutting the Sigil plotline and we're doing Herald stuff, you know, or like that would have been the decision that would have had to have been made.
Or just like having more Heralds die in the book, like if they were all dead or something, and that would make more sense to me, because at least like Chana and Ash and Town, I have no issue with Ghost Spren picking up the things, but like the ones that are alive, I'm like, what are the?
I think they're just astral projecting. Like I don't think they came back from. I don't think they came back from Braze for this moment. They're just wherever they are. They're seeing.
They're Skyping in.
Yeah. Bondsmith weird stuff. Fishar doing weird stuff.
It's 2025 is zooming in.
I think it's important though that they all made that decision, because if it had just been like Kaladin rejoins, like they all had set down their burden, so they needed to kind of pick it back up again.
And I totally agree in that sense. I was more just like, how? What's going on with these other guys? And it feels like we opened some boxes that we didn't.
This Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like this is getting into Brandon is a softer magic person
Yes.
than a lot of people think he is. Yes, like
Yep.
he does a lot of hard magic. There's also a lot of soft magic, which is like leads to cool seeds like this. Which like
Mhm.
you squint at it and it's like I don't totally understand the mechanism here,
Yeah, yeah.
but I also don't need to for this to work for me.
And like
Yeah.
this never even occurred to me until like at least a second reread. I'm just like, interesting.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think-
it could be similar to like Painter and Yumi, like kind of astral projecty-ish. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess there's some astral projection mechanics.
And is this all that different from like Shallan seeing Yalb survive the shipwreck? It's just kind of
I feel like this makes more sense than that.
I mean,
And like I'm already like fine with that, so I have to be okay with this.
yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. To me, what it reminds me of is when Dalinar sees the connections of the Heralds. Like this is just a different manifestation
Yeah,
of seeing the Oathpact. Is that they're
Sure.
all right there instead of just
Yeah,
seeing
yeah,
the
yeah.
lines connecting.
True.
them.
yeah.
True.
And like going like wishing to have seen more of the Heralds is like again finite page space.
Yeah.
We know Heralds are going to be more important to the back five.
Yep.
So it's like whatever Polly and Vedala have been doing, because I feel like they're the last two left that we've heard nothing about.
Yep.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. Very, very little. Okay. So this is another thing that I have kind of wondered about that I think has probably come up in some conversations. There's a moment when Kaladin, he's becoming a herald. He's getting ready to say his ideals. It's all very interesting, kind of the sequence of how things happen, like when you get the honor blade versus when, all these various steps happen. We don't have to get into that too much. But anyway, he said his words and now he's going to manifest his blade and he puts out his hand to do it. And then Syl in that same moment, nothing happens and she puts out her hand as well. And at that point, the honor sphere kind of appears,
So they both
and so
had to.
they both did it in that moment, and it's not her sphere. She's not, Kaladin can still summon her as a sphere, presumably,
Presumably, yeah.
But it has echoes of her design. Like there's a little bit of her in the sphere as well. It seemed to me, at least implied by that moment, that it's at least maybe Kaladin's expectations were that it would look like his whole sphere. But it's just interesting to me, and he's a fifth order radiant, and they've kind of. There's been all this kind of thematic things about, Syl being her own person and being an agent and kind of coming into, like when Dalinar sends them to Shinovar, her being like, oh, you're sending us both. And so there's a part of me where I'm like, okay, are they kind of both in the Oathpact in a way that maybe Nail and his Spren aren't?
Yeah, because obviously Nail Spren was way later that where Nail
Mhm.
swore those
Something
oaths, right?
Yeah. So I don't know if that's just a thought that goes nowhere or if that's just me, but
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah, that's
fighting with
interesting.
that.
I originally read that as like she's sort of taking the place of Honor and is like being the agent of Honor, but I don't know that Honor actually like helps summons the blade in the original Oathpact. Does
didn't
he?
he like pull a splinter of light like out of his
Yeah.
chest and like hand it to them? Well, maybe
Yeah,
that's
so
what's
I
happening, as she's
I
doing
kind of
that.
put, I mean, she didn't actually pull the spear out of her chest, but I kind of read it originally as her sort of taking that place because she did accept the words.
Yeah,
That's a
she's
good
like,
point. I don't know,
like
it's
some
interesting.
role of honor. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because it's looking at it, it's not that it doesn't work before she does that. It's just that happens next. It's not like Kaladin tries to summon a spear and fails, and then she comes in to help him.
But it's also like
It's
not like
just
he's
like-
like waiting for her to put her hand out to do it necessarily either. Like that's just a sequence of what happens.
Yeah.
You know?
It's
Yeah,
interesting.
I feel like the mechanism of Herald, you have to have been a meat human to be a Herald, and
Okay.
she's a spread.
Mm.
So
For
I.
now.
Oh God!
She can
don't.
join that
I-
Oathpact later, baby.
I think it's more symbolic than anything. I think it's, hey, Kaladin and Syl have been moving towards doing things more as partners than as one being an auxiliary to the other one's will.
Hey.
And so it's like this is symbolic of them going, okay, we're gonna do this together. Even though technically only Kaladin is the Herald.
Yeah, because there's also like the whole like 10 heralds. Like if Syl is also a herald, that's 11 heralds, which is not as auspicious a number.
It's not
that is
it's an
honor.
ODME
No
number.
symmetry to it.
Don't get me started.
There
numbers.
is also the kind of when Taravangian is ascending to retribution, when he is ascending to honor in that moment, there's a piece of honor, or there are pieces of honor that like fly away.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Which I've always interpreted as, oh, this is what becomes Kaladin's honor blade or honor spear.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of reminiscent of honor pulling pieces of himself to like hand to the heralds, and once all of the heralds have this piece of honor in their hands, only then do those pieces become blades, kind of the physical representation or manifestation of the heraldhood and of honor's power. And so I think like that piece needed to come from somewhere. And it was either going to come from honor directly, or it was going to come from Syl, and it obviously did not come from Syl.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was both the power that became Kaladin's blade and like the pieces of honor that they're keeping back from Taravangian, or if that is the power that they themselves represent. It's the power that they're holding back. Like that was kind of something that was ambiguous to me. But
yeah, that was my thought. It was like that was representing like the largest chunks of free honor, which are within the heralds. Like they're the largest chunk of honor that's left. So it's like that's like disconnecting from the main mass explicitly, but like to keep as pure honor as opposed to retribution.
I don't think those would need to disconnect though. Like I think they are already disconnected. Like that's the heralds. They are already their own thing.
Yeah, in my mind, it's more like, are the heralds holding back their own power and a little extra they kind of sucked away at the last second, or are they just holding back their own power? Because there is like a moment where they talk about drawing. Let's see if I can find it.
I think there's an argument that those could be a lot of different things. Like I wouldn't be surprised if like Syl got a bit of extra oomph in that moment, potentially. And like that's kind of why her appearance is a little different, potentially.
Yeah, here's what I've got. This is in the context of them setting up the kind of vision protection. What they're saying, the wind has suggested a way to avoid the torture nail. Ishar said, impossible will honor live, but with some of his power siphoned off as retribution asserts himself. So they were siphoning power. It's just like, where did that just go to Kaladin, or did they do more with it?
I can also see this as a bit of a get out of jail free card for Brandon.
There's extra honor stuff.
Some like honor got separated off when it happened to like, so he always has that in his back pocket to like, if he needs it.
He's like, I need to make a Starlight machine. Where those splinters of honor go? Like. And
I do think like part of that is the power that became Kaladin's blade, for sure.
Yes.
Right? Like that at least has to be part of it, but that can be more things, right?
Sure.
Although the timeline is maybe like a little fuzzy there. Maybe the power knew it was going to get called away, but I believe all of the Kaladin stuff happens after Dalinar has already died, because they confirm that Dalinar is dead. And Dalinar is the one, I think, who sees the power.
The scene order and chronological order is a little weird.
The power separates because it knows it will be separated.
Yeah, easy. Easy. I mean, you're not wrong.
Very.
It's like I do like the idea of like that need extending back into time to like the shard of honor to like preemptively supply demand. That's a cool concept.
It is probably the case, because the wind is like, something real bad's gonna happen, guys. Like the wind feels it, right?
Yeah, well, and like the power of honor is intelligent and of multiple minds in some ways, and like at this point, kind of the possibility tree is collapsing. Like this was in theory an improbable thing that nobody could see happening, which maybe they could, maybe they couldn't. Some of them managed to get pretty close, but But now that like this is happening and Retribution is ascending, like there are only a few ways that the remaining events can play out, you know?
Sure.
And so maybe Honor's power. It's like a lot easier to see like, oh, the Heralds are probably going to do something.
Yeah. I think one of the last things on our list of stuff to talk about is just Herald Abilities, because you know we're gonna see these guys in the back half, especially Kaladin. You know, Talon and Ash, they'll be there too. Main POV characters. We talked about their immortality. They had Surge Binding before the Oath Pact, which is again wild, and they had to give up their surges, and then they got the surges that they got through the Honor Blades.
And
So I will point out, we did know they had Surge Binding before they were Heralds, because we knew that they had Surge Binding on Ashen.
I guess I was surprised that those still worked on Roshar before the Oath Pact. Right, like that was unclear to me.
Point.
Like Ashen, totally fine, but like I thought, like Ashen being broken, it wouldn't work anymore for whatever reason. Like it didn't have to, but it was just interesting seeing them being like, "Oh, you're not supposed to use your powers here." It's like it's wild that you have the ability to use powers here, but okay.
I think there's enough room here for this to be like a vision artifact of like the spiritual realm adapting to what the characters are doing.
No, but I think they did have powers. They did.
They did still have
absolutely
powers.
Were able to do that.
They just like said like this is a bad idea and we shouldn't be doing this. But like Ishar needs to have still had bondsmithy powers, like because he was like prepping the Oath
Sure.
Videl had
that's
stuff.
true.
Yeah, for sure. Right. So that was just interesting to me with the Surge Binding. Unexpected to me. We do have some other stuff, because apparently Tanavast pushed the Heralds harder. And they were able to access Honor's power more fully and of Roshar itself. I don't know what that means, but I assume that gave like the precognition, basically the Atium stuff that Nail clearly is using, and I think clearly that Talon was using in the fight in Azamir, right? Like there's no way he was obviously using that.
But like even before like this book, like it was heavily implied that there was more going on with the Heralds than just Surge Binding and immortality. So like this just gave us a few more pieces of the puzzle. I definitely think like the enhanced speed that like they seem to have.
Town broke
like,
windows, guys.
It's like
it up.
seem to have like some sort of strength.
Yeah.
And like the fortune ability.
Yeah.
If they're drawing power from like Roshar itself, like are they tapping into the old gods?
I mean,
like
what else would
Wind, Stone, and Night? Like, as like the purest like Rosharness that is not the shards.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think we know that like the singers did stone shaping with the stones before like Surge Binding was a thing, right?
No, that was with Honor.
Or like
that was with
Honor. It was before Surge Binding though, but that wasn't Surge Binding.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
Yeah.
Honor gave them the ability to like sing to the stones or with the stones and stone shape.
Yeah, they weren't doing it.
Yeah, but I mean, even in this, there's like Honor was pushing them to have powers of Roshar. Like to me, that's very similar to saying like Honor gave the singers like stone shaping and saying Honor gave singers power, Heralds powers of Roshar.
My understanding was that Honor was surprised and unclear on the nature of these powers that the Heralds got.
Yeah,
it is that he was like the two things are independent. Like he was pushing more power into them, and parallel to that, he realized that they had acquired an additional power set, which was not of him, but of Roshar.
There's another good quote that is, I had the Heralds, and they more and more were able to draw on the powers of Roshar itself instead of just my surges. I did not understand why or how, but I did not wish to seem weak by admitting that fact. I love that. Good old Tanner.
Personally, like the proto stone shaping is still Surge Binding. It's just Surge Binding in a different form.
Yeah.
What is surge binding?
Everything.
Every magic
Yeah.
of
If it's-
Roshar
if
is
it's
surge
Yeah,
binding.
it just
Magic
means
in-
it just means investiture now.
If it's magic
Yeah,
in
so it's
Greater
like-
Roshar, it's
Yes,
surge
that's right.
binding.
Yes.
So it's like it's still surge binding in that it's an active effect that like active expression. Whereas like these powers of Roshar, like if it is the enhanced speed and enhanced strength are more passive abilities.
Yeah, it does seem like these powers of Roshar itself, how could it not just be like wind, stone, and night? I guess speed, strength for stone, and precognition for night, because, you know, the night forms, we all know.
They have
Very
the tie
good
already.
future sight. We all know night has a long-standing aspect with slight future sight here.
But like also night was the closest to cultivation, and cultivation is said to be quite good with future vision.
Yeah. So that makes sense to me.
That feels like a very nice parallel of the power sets, actually.
Yeah. It didn't grok to me until the strength with stone. I'm like, okay, I think this is what's happening here.
So
That is more or less what I had in mind.
Great.
we don't see a ton of like raw strength from the Heralds. I think the only instance that I can recall is when we see the aftermath of like Taln fighting back in Azimir. A lot of the singers and fused and regals around him have like their chests ripped open and like their gem hearts cracked, which is superhuman, but it's not like supersonic speed levels of human strength
Talon
necessarily.
has a lot of abs, though. Did you think about
That
that?
he has all the abs, in
All the
fact,
abs.
according to Word of Brand.
I still feel like that's beyond ab. Like
No, yes,
Like-
and I absolutely agree.
no matter how much muscle
was
you
just doing
have on your
crunches.
body, I don't think you're ripping into people's chests quite that easily.
I do think it's probably this inherent super strength that
Well,
is granted.
yeah, and the other point I would make, and it's a little hard to tell because, you know, the Windrunner plate can kind of fade in and out. It's unclear how the Skybreaker plate works. You know, we haven't done a ton of comparative plate mechanics, but Kaladin and Nail fight each other,
Yes.
and Nail specifically dismisses his plate, is not mentioned to resummon it again, and then grabs Kaladin like a rag doll and smashes him against the wall, breaking through his plate himself.
It does seem like all of the stuff Nail's doing there is like, oh, this is my full Herald stuff, which
Yeah.
doesn't he say, oh, we don't often like doing that? I don't know why.
Yeah. He's kind of like, you forced me to use the true talents of the Heralds, which is not something I often kind of do.
I just
Yeah,
don't, why
you know.
why would he not? I don't
Because
know.
it's cheating.
I think he's trying. I think he's like kind of like he's trying to be fair with Kaladin. Like it's Nail, you know. So he's like, we're doing a duel, and like I'm not going to cheat. Like we're gonna have a fight. We're gonna have a fair fight. But then Kaladin actually gets close, and he doesn't want to lose. So he's
well,
like, well,
sure, but there was an implication that in general he doesn't want to often use that unless necessary. Which, like, that's the weird part to me. Like, yeah, I totally agree with the Nail duel. That totally makes sense to me.
I think there is, and I don't know how big that is, but I think there is the implication here that the Heralds don't feel worthy of the powers of Roshar.
Okay.
And I believe there was a thing, possibly in a conversation with Nail, about them like being more out of tune, or like it's more difficult for them to access these powers, or like the powers have rejected them in some capacity. And so I do think there is this idea of, yes, the Heralds have walked away from their honor blades, but they've also in a way walked away from Roshar. And so it is either more difficult or they are more reluctant to draw on that power.
Okay.
I think that in addition to that, which I do agree with, if there's anybody out there who is potentially like in, like, you know, most likely to be in awe and be really wary of grand powers that you may not fully understand, like it is the Heralds, as having like destroyed a whole planet, you know. So I can see them treating these powers with like a certain amount of reverence, you know, and like they've employed and like they've employed them in defense of the planet at great need, you know, in great need. But like, you know, in a duel, are you going to pull out all the stops? You know, maybe that's not a good idea.
That's an
So,
interesting
that was my
point,
read.
because like probably if Honor doesn't know, probably the Heralds, maybe Ashar has some theories as to why that's happening, but they might not really even understand what's happening there. And so they
Nail does agree, like at the start of the duel, Kaladin's like, oh, no powers or whatever, like both of them forfeit their light. And so
Mhm.
I think part of this is Nail's like implied understanding that this is gonna be, oh, just raw combat ability, no powers.
that's
Mhm.
interesting to me, and makes sense that these extra powers then don't use light, you know. And so I guess that just oddly reminds me of the Unoathed, where the Unoathed stuff doesn't need light. It's just like, yeah, it still works.
Well, yeah, and well, that's interesting.
I don't
That's an
know.
interesting point. I was
Yeah.
going to make a connection there, but then I was like, wait, no, that was related to new Oathpact, but it's like what we had, not related to
Yeah,
the powers
yeah.
of
Well,
Rashar.
I mean, if the new Oathpact is sealed by Adonalsium's power, right?
There's a part of me,
you know.
Aiden
that
Alsium's
interprets-
power is literally everything in the Cosmere.
Well,
I-
but like when the old gods are more Adonalsium. I see what you're saying.
yeah,
Unshattered
I interpret,
in a
I
sense.
interpret like sealed by Adonalsium to mean like enforced by the laws of Adonalsium, like the laws that bind the shards. Like that's kind of what it's saying. Is like that's the authority, and not necessarily that Adonalsium is particularly involved.
I thought it
But-
was of the old gods, that the old gods were.
I don't know. I mean,
in that.
you have the avatar of Adonalsium specifically involved. I don't know if you can make that assumption. Like,
You
I don't know if I
cause
would
some
use that
emotional
word
damage there.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
that's an interesting perspective.
I would be remiss, however, if I didn't bring up a quote from chapter 86,
Okay.
where like Kaladin is experiencing like flashes of Nail's life as memories from the wind. Because like the wind is like, oh, please, Kaladin, you have to make him remember who he was and stuff like that. In one of those flashes, Terror, cowering in a corner as red eyes burst through a doorway, the Nail moving with the speed of the wind, lowercase in this case,
Yes.
arrived to save those who had been forgotten. So make of that what you will. That doesn't need to mean anything specific, but if you want it to mean that, you know, these powers, these non-honor powers come from the old gods, this could be a point of support to that.
I mean, it doesn't look like surge binding, and like I suppose you could lash to do that technically, right? To move really fast, but like that's not
Yeah.
what that line indicates to me, right?
Yeah, no, he's like Nail is like described as like moving so fast that he like blurs, which is like how Brandon talks about like Steel Farouk.
Yeah, that's right.
So like
exactly.
that's
yeah.
like that. Yeah, it's not just like Nail is like, oh yeah, I just 5 times lashed myself sideways. Like
Yeah. He's physically
He's moving
moving that fast, and I feel like that's very similar to the town setting up the Windows break and stuff.
yeah,
Like that
yeah.
feels
Well,
similar.
and this is one of the things that is really good about the book is that it answers a lot of Herald questions we've had for a long time. Wherein like you know in the past before the Radiant showed up, there was always kind of the question of okay, so there was a long time when 10 Heralds with their honor blades alone were mostly responsible for like like there it just seemed like it would have been a power mismatch there, and it always seemed like there would have had to have been more to the Heralds, and now we're finally kind of getting some of that. We're like, okay, this is why they're exceptional, because they can do things like what Talon and Ash did in Azamir.
Because it's the two kind of big things about the Heralds is that they are unbound in that they seem to be able to just access one, essentially an infinite amount of investiture through honor, and two, they have almost no restrictions to the powers that they can use.
No, I don't think that's the case, because like honor was still restricting them. Because like Ishar is only a bondsmith like unshackled post honor's death.
Yeah,
like before that he was still restricting.
Yes,
they were unrestrained on Ashen. They are not unrestrained on Roshar, because that went really badly on Ashen.
Yeah.
Then with
and-
Honor died.
But yes, but I do think that they were more free than Radiants of the same order.
I do think that Heralds at full strength probably just get free investiture to just search bind however much they want. Like
I
that's
agree with
always been my
that.
theory. Yeah.
And I think Brandon said that in Old Wobs. Like when you say more free, what do you mean, Argent? Like in what? Like if you had a Herald leaving out the powers of Rashar and leaving out the infinite investiture, like what do you think they could do that would be different than a Radiant?
I don't know how to describe that other than more.
Yeah.
Maybe more is just okay by virtue of them having infinite investiture. There is like I'm reminded of the fight between Zeth and Rit.
Oh, that is true because they did seem to like infinitely use Stormlight in that sense.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But the Honor Blade's also normally like incredibly weak compared to regular short surge binding. So to me, like it seemed like it was just more like a regular, and Honor Blade lets you do regular power surge binding, like it kind of corrected for the weakness of the Honor Blades that we normally see,
Maybe.
I think
Yeah, because like they require a massive amount of light that
Yeah.
Radiants don't.
Mhm.
Because like they didn't need to be efficient because they were plugged into an infinite source.
Yeah. Right. You don't need to
Yeah.
have the conduit be super efficient. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and it's a prototype.
I think Heralds get infinite investiture and are probably some of the most skilled at surge binding in like their youth, and that goes a long way. But I would not be surprised if, in terms of like raw connections and abilities, Shalon with 2 bonds is like of a similar level or greater. Like I don't know. It's hard with power, hard to say with power levels, but
Yeah, like at the end of the day, they still can't set the atmosphere on fire. Like that's no. Like
Yeah,
Honor is explicitly forbidding that in like anything approaching that. So like, they are still restricted.
there's a quote and like related to this, it's like the second half of the one that Eric was reading earlier about pushing the Heralds harder and letting them access the powers more fully of his own as well as that of Rashar. As long as I was bound by oaths, they would not be able to destroy the land. So it was so they're like inheriting the restrictions that Honor has put in place underneath them. I think that they could be like stronger in some ways. Like you could tell me that like they can affect a wider area or they do grander soul casting than your average Radiant, but I just don't think it's like they're not unchained. They're not like Ashen.
Well, I really wonder in this status quo with Retribution now, as long I was bound by oaths, it's like, what does that mean now with
all of those oaths are now kaput because Dalinar got rid of them.
And so like what does that mean? Right? Yeah, exactly.
Well, Retribution could reestablish them. Like he could immediately be like, okay, well, we're clamping back down on surge binding and we're not going to let it be unbound because I don't want you to blow up my planet that I've conquered.
But
like that's possible.
If this is like some fragments of honor that Retribution doesn't have access to, can Retribution even restrict the Heralds?
I think that I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think that's possible.
I think yes. Like I think he can like keep to the same restrictions they had before. I think he can keep the radiance from blowing up the planet. I don't think he can like impose more stringent restrictions to like nerf them.
That I can buy. I do think there's an argument that like maybe it's just beyond Retribution's touch to touch them or influence their actions. But it is weird because presumably they will be getting infinite light as is proper, but like maybe that's just the extra honor stuff and it's not from whatever core of Retribution that is. It's I could argue either way, right?
Yeah, I think that ties into like Allomancy is powered directly from preservation, but it doesn't decrease the amount of power preservation has because it just returns to preservation.
Yeah.
Like they have a pool of investiture.
Yeah.
And it's just like cycling.
Yeah. That's
constantly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, I get what you're saying though. Like the question is, have they like partitioned off a little part, or is it more like Allomancers and like Retribution just can't stop them from drawing on his power, because he just can't make that kind of decision.
I don't think there's like a mini honor essentially that they're plugged into. I think they just have a backdoor into Retribution, and they can.
Yeah. And
By virtue of being Heralds of Honor, they are not Heralds of Retribution, but they just like continue being Heralds of Honor. Like they're grandfathered in essentially.
yeah. Interesting. I don't know. I think we talked about most stuff. Final thoughts? Herald's Oathpact? New status
Here's
quo?
one.
Okay.
In the prologue, the Stormfather says the words, a herald has died. No, I am not ready. The Oathpact, no. They mustn't see, they mustn't know. Not knowing everything we know at the Oathpact now. And what happened? What the heck was he talking about?
I do not know what the hell he's talking about. Like, the Stormfather's plan is really weird. And also, Ishar's plan before Jezreel's death, I don't really understand what's happening.
I don't either.
Honest.
Yeah.
It does not make sense to me.
Yeah.
Why are you preparing a herald when there's nothing to... Okay, I don't know. Fortune, sure.
Yeah, not to get into too much of the product critique, but that's really what gets me. Like, it's these things where I'm just like, I don't look back in retrospect and go, oh, I go, what? That's what keeps happening.
I'm sure that means something, and I would love to get some wobs to get that. Like, that must mean something.
I think that is about Honor's power, and he's just sort of like stumbling around and saying, like, the original thought is something like, the Oathpact is coming back. That means Desolation's coming. That means someone needs to pick up Honor. I'm not ready. Like, that sort of train of thought, maybe.
Okay. Yeah. There's some things in the prologue that make more sense on a reread. There's some things in the prologue that I'm still a little bit like, what? Okay, interesting. Other thoughts?
I doubt we'll get conversations with Cal and the Heralds, but I really want to see them. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff in there, and then I also think there's a lot of like, wait, you're Shallan's mom, the woman who I maybe almost had a thing with? That's kind of weird. Or
look, that we get Chana Stormblessed. We gotta name the theory here.
I wasn't gonna acknowledge that.
I was.
That's horrible.
I like it only if Shallan eventually gets to kill Kaladin.
That would be so funny.
That would be funny.
That would be a great way to stop being a Brandon Sanderson fan. I was like, well, I was on board till Shallan killed Kaladin, and then I knew that I was done with
Kaladin
the books.
is Shallan's stepdad, and then Shallan needs to kill Kaladin.
Yeah.
Here's a saving grace of the Kaladin Chana relationship is that most likely the son that he killed was the bastard son of Lynn. So he didn't kill one of her children.
Yeah. I mean, Kaladin's not going to talk about these things.
I think it'd be great if he told Shallan's mother that he killed Helaron before he told Shallan. He's like, we're going to have this talk first. This was the less probable one, but we're going to somehow we'll be the ones who talk about it.
Relationship with you. It's easier for me to talk about this.
He's like, I just don't know how to bring it up with Shallan. Any tips? You told her that she caused the world to end. This seems like a small thing next to that.
Very good. Anything else?
So I did want to, and I it's a thought.
Okay.
Really. But I'm always reminded of Sunlit Man.
Okay.
And how the Scadrians there ask Nomad, or maybe he volunteers that information. But I think they ask him whether he is oathed, and he says no.
Mm-hmm.
And so that Sunlit Man presumably happening after Stormlight 10.
Yeah.
Kind of makes me think about the future of the unoathed in not only like the context of Roshar itself, but also the greater Cosmere, and the idea that, Scadrians are okay with either the unoathed or kind of their legacy, as it were. They are less okay with someone who has sworn oaths. And I think that's an interesting thing for the future.
I think that ties into if you've sworn oaths, you have superpowers. If you're unoathed, like you just have a really
super
powerful weapon.
Sure. Yeah.
Well,
that's fair.
Okay. Here's my thing is that I'm not, this is, maybe I'm wrong. I'm not convinced that Brandon had fully nailed this down when he wrote Sunlit Man. Because to me, it's somewhat confusing. I don't think that like what actually happens here fits with him being like, in my mind, like he uses the word unoathed, doesn't he? But it's not capitalized.
It is not capitalized.
Yeah, he talks to them. They say, "You're unoathed." He knows that they've got a shard, that he's got a shard blade. But he it sounds like he's saying, "I don't have, I'm not a radiant. I'm not following ideals." And then later, when his like shard plate starts to manifest around him, like air broke around him, fragments. They look at him and they go, "Oathed after all." Which to me, but the unoathed have plate. So like, what is
which is odd, yeah, and they can summon it too.
Yeah.
And they can summon it too. So like, it doesn't like, maybe there's some characteristic about it that makes it seem that it's behaving oddly in a way that unoathed plate wouldn't. But like in my mind, I'm like, this is kind of ambiguous. What this is meant to be that he's saying he is, in this new status quo of how shard blades work in the Cosmere.
Yeah.
Brandon, please do spoiler Stormlight 5 live stream at some point, please.
Yes. We're in a desert for spoiler wobs, guys. There's been
we're
that
ready.
spoiler Q&A,
We
and
need
that's
answers.
it.
Yeah. Next time Brandon streams, people. No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do a call to action.
No, don't do that.
But okay. Here's my actual final thought, which is with Kaladin's new position. The Heralds, immortal, importance reinforced. Sigzil in the future thinking about Kaladin, maybe knowing what he is, maybe not knowing what he is. Down the road, an unknown period of time. Like, I'm just kind of curious, like where the Heralds will go ultimately, which is probably kind of an unanswerable question.
Yeah.
And like, is this Kaladin and Cosmere endgame? Is this another person that will still be alive? We're talking when Eric is talking about Hoyd and Kelsey are on the battleship.
Yeah, on
is
the
Kaladin
Blackthorn's
out
on
there?
another one, easy.
Yeah, Blackthorn, Blackthorn is another real candidate, It's just something kind of interesting to think about.
Yeah, I think I would like the Heralds to rest at the end of Stormlight 10. That seems
that's the other option.
That is like they have done their task finally.
It feels
I
weird
would like the Heralds that want to rest. And if they feel like
yes, agreed.
Yeah, if they solve, go ahead.
To think of the future of the Cosmere with Heralds in it,
Like that, a little weird space age.
I can't quite explain why, but Heralds feel confined to Stormlight to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like if they do not continue to exist, it will be because they figured out some other way to they'll have to have found some other way to protect the Spren, because that means they'll been able to finally put their oath down. So I don't know if that means they can't stop existing until maybe Retribution needs to die, and that'll have happened by then. It's hard to say. Yeah.
But they bind them in an agreement of some kind or something.
Yeah, sure.
Well, which is another reason why I kind of feel like Kaladin will stay immortal though, and Syl will become Storm, whatever, because then they've got a continued way for him to remain relevant and like a person for him to be with.
Yeah. Of any Herald to persist, I think Kaladin would be the likely one. I think the other ones have lived long enough, and they'll be like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Because like Sigzil did genuinely think Kaladin showing up was an option at the beginning of Sunlit Man.
I interpret it that differently. I really do. But
given Kaladin becoming a Herald, I'm like,
it's possible. Super possible.
Before this book, I'm like, that's just whatever. Yeah. It's like now I'm like, I feel like that was maybe foreshadowing.
Plausible.
It's definitely plausible. It's just I don't think you can read the scene and know for sure which it is.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think you make a great argument.
Yeah. Cool. Let's head on over to Who's That Cosmere Character?
This character is from Roshar.
Menace. Tien.
Tone.
Raise.
Void in drag on a horse.
It's time for Who's That Cosmere Character? Caw.
All right, listeners, you know how the game is played. You send an email to wtcc@17shard.com with 5 clues in the character those clues correspond to. I read each clue aloud, and after each one, our panelists get the chance to guess who's that Cosmere character. Let's begin.
Hell yeah.
The beginning.
So much smoother than our Lorwab episode. That went great.
You know, you're getting back into it, Grace. I feel like we got the ideal cast. We got the 4 of us. You're hosting the Who's That Cosmere Character. This is how it should be. And
The spiritual aspect of Shardcast.
This is the spiritual ideal right here, I think. So you got to pick a good one. Don't kick us out of the spiritual realm here.
Yeah, we can't let Ian win though. That's the only thing.
He probably will.
This one,
If anything, the spiritual ideal will probably mean he does.
I know. That's what I'm trying to push back against. Yeah.
this one was sent in by Michael Becker.
Hello.
Clue 1.
Becker.
This character is forgetful.
Syl.
It is not Syl.
Oh, that's smart.
Pattern.
That's a good.
That's good.
It is not Pattern.
What about Says It?
It is not Sazed.
That's funny.
It things constantly.
What's her name?
Is Ian just like nailed it in one? He's gonna one shot.
You know,
us
we
here.
got to keep the episode snappy. So
It's been too long since I read Elantris. Is it Raoden's stepmom?
Oh,
Ashen?
Aishin?
Ishin.
Yeah.
Ishin.
Yeah.
It is not Ishin.
that would have been amazing. that would have been
Too.
incredible.
This character is not from Roshar.
Okay.
Could have been Aishin.
Could have been. I feel like, you know, Serene's like dueling group. It's like a great way to look for a character that's like forgetful. You know, like you're like what was the singular trait that was assigned to this character?
Yeah.
As we were running through the list here.
Oh, here's the tall one. Here's the forgetful one. Here's the fashionable one.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to keep going. Torina?
This is not Torina.
Well,
Okay.
She was a spy, damn it.
That's right.
Oh.
I'm gonna go with Talm.
It's not Tom.
we didn't know that he was not from Roshar. Probably
Wait a
when
minute.
This was probably submitted.
Wait, no, he is from Roshar. Okay, well, none
Yes,
of that made
he was
any
born
sense.
probably
Yeah.
had last time. That still counts as your guess.
No, absolutely, that's fine. No, I think I'm more confused because I edited that episode. I'll be totally honest, and I got my
Yeah.
wires crossed.
Because the consensus is Talon was born on Rashar.
Yeah,
Yes?
yes,
That's the
yes.
timeline. Yeah,
Yes.
he's the only one.
Yeah,
well,
he's the only one.
now we think that. Back in the
Yeah,
day.
well, we
Yeah,
would
yeah,
have.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and I was going with
I
like,
wouldn't
oh, he's
necessarily.
only saying his mantra, so that's kind of like forgetful.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I was going to guess Dalinar, but he's from Rashar. It would have been a great one. But there's characters forgetting things constantly.
There's still a lot of Rosharans actually, as it happens.
Yeah, a lot of Rasharans with memory issues as it happens.
It's true. That's actually true. Delnor's pretty good.
Yeah.
Forgetful and not from Rashar.
I have a good guess.
I don't have
Yeah.
any, let alone good ones.
My other one is like, I'm like, is there like an Era 2 character?
Any
Like,
copper Feruchemist.
Yeah,
I know. I was tempted to be like Tind. You know what? I'm just gonna do it. What about Tindwile?
It is not Tindwell.
Okay.
Yeah, Copper Furukami was what was
Yeah,
going through
yeah.
my head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I did say Zayd. Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
like, okay, well, we can just keep doing that.
Do we have
But
any other archivists, I believe is the fairing name?
I don't think we've had any archivists. We've only met full Feruchemists that have copper mines, I
That's
think.
true.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go with. I mean, I'll lean in on the same technicality and go with Kelsier.
It is not Kelsier.
Oh, yeah, anyone who's held the Bands of Mourning, technically forgetful.
He also has like presumably a bunch of coins, like because we.
Oh yeah, he
true.
made his memory. He put his
Yeah,
memory in there.
yeah,
He forgot
yeah.
that moment for sure.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a good point.
It's true.
That's a good point.
Okay.
This character has talked to multiple point of view characters.
Great.
Yeah, well, sure.
Oh,
Is Tindwell ever a point of view character?
Hoid.
No.
It is not Hoyd.
Ah,
Okay, that's a good
I
one.
think we
memories
are-
are excised.
Yeah,
I think
that would
we are
work.
barking at the wrong tree with that.
No, I think we are
With
too.
snoring memory.
Yeah, I'm burning guesses to get to better clues.
I think
some more
there's someone who is genuinely forgetful when we're just being dumb about
No, it must be magical.
Well, okay, here's a fun thing too, though. Wait a minute. Is that think about the returned? Like, who are they? But a series of forgetful giants.
Yeah, I was thinking about Mercy Star for some reason.
What were the
Oh.
clues again?
Clues are forgetful.
Not Rashar,
not
forgetful.
Rashar. Talk to multiple point of view.
Oh, it doesn't talk to
Oh.
multiple.
Okay, what about what about I'm trying to think about I also feel like it's not true. Like I'm like it's probably not a returned, you know.
No, well, see, returned work. I was thinking about the priest's daughter that Vasher
Oh, the
magically
child?
excises.
Oh,
But,
yeah,
like,
I don't think she's
that's-
ever named.
And
Well,
maybe
she's
she might
also
be.
only ever spoken with Vasher.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
what-
it's
okay,
not multiple
how about-
POVs.
How about Susabron?
It is not Susabron.
Technically,
Good for-
he returned as a baby, so he didn't have any previous life
Okay,
to forget.
Yeah, well, you're forgetting the womb memories that he might have had, Ian.
That's terrifying to think about. I'm gonna say Blushweaver.
It is
I'm
not
slowly dying.
Blushweaver.
I was trying to think if Blushweaver talked to a second POV character that wasn't Light Song. I was like, did she ever meet?
She talks to
Pick that out.
Siri.
Oh, you're right.
You have put like the most depressing thought into my head, David. Of
Oh,
like
no.
a baby returns and then doesn't know who their mother is when she tries to hold him.
Babies don't know that either.
The stillborn returned is
No,
creepy as hell.
Well, yeah, and like the thing about it is like it kind of it doesn't break the rules, but like it's sort of a corner case where you're just like, okay, well, we don't know. Everyone else forgets their former life, and the reason, you know what I mean. And so, like the babies, are they called to return to do anything? Who can
It's
say?
gonna be someone with no magical forgetfulness at all. But like, we got
I don't think
plenty
it's
more-
magical because that's like I wouldn't describe the returned as forget. Like I wouldn't describe someone who
No.
loses their memory as
But, like,
No,
forgetful.
but is the next
but, like,
character
you
I'm
could-
gonna guess be a returned? Maybe, probably.
Yeah, it's a if the answer was a returned, I would accept it though. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's an acceptable kind of like interpretation of it.
yeah, but I would grumble about it.
Okay, well,
Well, but yeah,
we
but-
might do
but-
that.
People grumble about all the fun ones. So you know,
Do you have a
In
In
guess,
absence
Argent?
of remembering an actually forgetful person, we're gonna go with magical forgetting.
Yeah, we're gonna go.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
got
at
plenty
least
of
it
people in the court of
applies.
gods here. Okay.
yeah. I'm not gonna take a 0% chance shot and not guess somebody who hasn't forgotten something, or guess somebody who hasn't forgot something. You know, like
Send me if
You
I
got
guess town like an idiot.
that's always the thing is when you're doing a throwaway. Yes, you have to make sure that you're not like for sure throwing it away. Like you're like, oh, whoops, that.
Well,
It never could have been that.
You know, it was dumb.
Is it Dalinar's Dalinar's father count with his like losing his mind, and he probably talked in a body at some point.
from Roshar
as well.
He is.
Ah. See, this is why you got to be careful.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Rashar.
think about.
We don't know he's not a world hopper. Dalinar's father could be a world hopper.
Everyone knows
This is-
Dalinar's dad. The reason why the colon princedom wasn't in vogue was because Dalinar's dad was a world hopper, and they made
He was
fun
off-world.
of Gavilar
Valid.
and Dalinar. We all know
Yeah,
this.
He
We
didn't
all
have
know
the
this.
influence. He didn't have the
Oh.
influence.
Did anyone guess Vasher already?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, Vasher.
It is not Vasher.
I didn't think it was. No.
No. Okay.
Clue 3. Or clue 4. This character is highly invested.
Oh, great. That's super helpful.
Sure, man.
Okay,
Well,
well,
so-
maybe it is a return.
It's their turn. Let's go with but 2 POV characters?
No, like-
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah, nobody in Sereni's dueling club is highly invested, so we are narrowing it
Hey.
down.
Okay,
now.
yeah, we can
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
Right, I know.
It is not Ryaino.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does he forget something?
I don't know. He was
Okay.
He was,
he was
Hoed.
Hoed for a long
Yeah.
time.
Okay.
That's
so
gonna be some
which
dumb returns,
returned talked with let's just go with Light Song.
It is not Light Song.
He probably talked
I
to
could just go with like, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's only ever spoken with Siri though. Is the thing.
Does
Well-
Tidwile have a POP?
Didn't we guess Tinwell already?
Yeah.
I know, but like I'm trying to think of if she's spoken. I'm thinking of third Fruitcubus that could have spoken to her and Seize. I'm like, did she maybe Jaden Weil? Maybe they both spoke to Jaden Weil.
I don't think she ever had a POV.
Probably not.
No, I don't think she had.
Probably
POV.
not the. I'll go to category POV characters and check.
You wanna guess Grandma V?
Oh, Waffendel?
Waffendo, yeah.
I don't know if she's an archivist though. I don't think we know that.
Oh no, she's not. We don't know if she has any powers at all, do we? I don't know if we ever said. I kind of always envisioned her as a full Farukavist. In my mind, that can't be true.
That's the same. Yeah, I also think of her as a full Farukavist.
She's not a full Farukavist.
That would be a great reveal, though. Like she's like, I actually have been the full Farukavist. We've been trying to breed for generations. We did it already. Sorry, Whack. You know.
Well, I don't think she's going to be alive in Era 3. I think she's too old.
Marasi can help her.
I truly don't know. I'll go back to my Mercy Star that I had vibes for.
It is not Mercy Star. David, you're the last one.
I'm gonna guess Weatherlove, the god of weather.
I don't storm.
It's not Weatherlove.
Damn.
Clue 5. This character has been to Erytheru.
Oh crap.
Highly invested, been to Erytheru, not from Roshar.
Forgetful.
We already guessed Vasher.
Yeah, I'm like, now I can't actually think of anybody.
Does Vivenna count?
Has Vivenna been to Erytheru?
Is Vivenna forgotten?
Is it Ash?
It is not Ash.
Okay.
We guessed Hoyd already, so it can't be him.
I thought Hoyd was a really good guess.
That was a good guess. So that was a fair guess.
It's fitting all of this.
And it's not Vasher.
No.
It cannot be any of the Fused because they are from Roshar.
Yeah.
Yeah, inherently.
Yeah.
Presumably none of the Shards.
Yeah, I was like terrified. Like, yeah, like Ray's never forgot anything that I can remember.
I mean, he probably did, but
when he was a man. When he was a man, Eric, sure. Certainly. Aren't we all forgetful? Isn't that clue secretly nonsense?
I guess like
first character with an eidetic memory.
Like I don't believe in this answer, but I'll go with Accentworth.
It is not Accentworth.
She is a full Farrakhamist. That's true.
Oh yeah, that is kind of bizarre.
Think this one wasn't sent in after Wind and Truth though. Grace, right?
Yeah.
No way.
She's a full Farrakhamist who goes down somewhat implausibly, in my opinion. But you know, whatever.
Like the Ghostbloods are not natural.
It was our last guess too. I know. I was like Mraize. I don't think fit.
It's highly invested.
I'm like, is the bird highly invested? Like that.
I don't know if I'd say highly invested.
I don't know.
Certainly invested, but
certainly invested. We're grasping. We're running out of ideas though. So I'm trying to think. Like who else would have come through? Like who is highly invested people that have traveled to Erytheru?
Yeah.
Like Heralds potentially.
Yeah.
Unmade technically, most likely, but Heralds not really. Doesn't really apply.
Figure out.
And the Heralds have forgotten a lot. Like the Heralds have forgotten a lot. That's true.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I guessed Ash.
But they're not all from Roshar, so like that could fit.
Mm. Talked with multiple POV characters. Okay. Kalak.
It was not Kalak.
That was a reasonable
David,
one.
it's down to you.
Is it down to me? Am I the last one?
Yes.
See, I'm like I could guess Nail, but I don't think like they would have like that doesn't strike me as correct. You know, even if it would be technically true.
I guess like back in the day, Erytheru, if that makes a difference.
Yeah, they probably were.
Does.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, like they certainly were. Like the Heralds must have, but like,
didn't they say Kalak specifically was in Erytheru at one point?
Mm-hmm.
But I guess we don't know that for a fact. Like that's a safe assumption, but we don't know that for a fact.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. Is I'm like, if you told me that
if the Heralds never went to Erytheru, I don't know what I would do, but like that's a literal impossibility.
Yeah. They were there. They were
like,
there.
They never traveled through the Oath Gates ever.
Or like,
never.
yeah,
They were like, no, I'll take the long way, bro. Don't worry.
Yep.
I'm gonna walk from Obama.
Yeah, I'm walking from Obama Bar. Wherever that was. Okay, so it's me.
Search in your heart, David. You know this character. I'm
Do
sure of
I?
it.
Do I? I don't know if
Are
I
we
do.
gonna be like, I'm trying to think. Probably.
I don't know, man.
I'm trying to think like Spren. I'm like
But
Spren.
they're all from Roshar.
Spread
All
not
from
from
Roshar.
Roshar.
Well, we don't know about the Void Spread. Who knows about those guys? But yeah. Already guessed town.
Clock.
Already guessed clock.
We also know like 2 named Void Spren.
They don't.
But like
necessarily
Void
forget
Spread
that.
aren't
So what if they-
forgetful like Rachel.
Yeah, what have they forgotten? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about, you know what? Let's see. Highly invested. Oh no, I can't guess that guy either. I'm just gonna guess Ishar. I quit. I give up. Ishar.
It's not Ishmar.
Damn,
The
how did
answer
I was
is-
so sure.
Nightblood.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
highly invested, met
Okay.
multiple POV characters.
He
Not
does
from
forget
Ishar.
Checks
things.
out.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
been there. He has
yeah.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And,
Fair
you know,
play.
and,
Fair play.
and to our
Yeah.
credit, it is magical forgetfulness, kind of.
There's magical forgetfulness
Like-
related to awakening. I was right.
Yeah. Well,
no.
that like he eats up a lot and then is tired and he forgets the details
Yeah.
and things, and that's related.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Nightblood works better for me than like the Returned, because like the Returned
Yeah.
forget once. I wouldn't describe that as forgetfulness.
Yeah. Whereas
Nightblood
that,
just
it's a recurring
perpetually
thing.
forgets
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. When he's drawn. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, fair play.
This is acceptable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've defeated us.
You got it.
Props to you.
Apparently, this character is forgetful is a recurringly difficult clue that we have had before. I don't know
no.
which who it's for, but that they said in their email, I was amused seeing how difficult it was for you guys to think of forgetful characters.
Well, I hope you're amused again,
Well,
good sir.
Round 2,
Yeah.
Forgetful Boogaloo.
It was like,
Yeah.
I
Streak
don't even.
unbroken. That's good. That's funny. We're so good at remembering that we can't even imagine being forgetful or recall.
We're so good.
Yeah, sure.
You know?
I can't even imagine forgetting something, guys.
Yeah.
My memory's legendary.
Just, you know.
That is all we're gonna do today because we've been recording for a while. So you can find us on 17chart.com for news, discussion, theories, and fun that you could want. Our Discord has a ton of people. Win and Truth channel's very exciting, and you can come say hi to us there too. And you can support our Patreon for as little as $1 a month. We will commission new art and things
Every month.
every month. And then sometimes they take a while, but they all are great. That's the thing. You can leave a super thanks if you're on YouTube. You could do that too, I guess. And that's what people want to do, right?
That's what we like. That's what really gets through to us.
Yep. And so anyway, we'll see you all next time for some other episode that I don't know. I think more WOBs. I think I'm gonna do it in that order, but if I didn't, then I'm gonna cut this. So I don't know. We'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Your cinema. Bye.
Bye.
Peace.
Call.